It's 9 o'clock. Morning, everyone. It's 9 a.m. It's Monday, November the 15th, 2021. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Fort Myers Beach Town Council. All members are present. Town manager, town attorney is around somewhere, town clerk, and members of the public are also here. So we'll stand as always for the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
We meet to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognize our responsibility to the past and the future, and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. May we act wisely and well. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item is the approval of the final agenda.
Move to add the special event permit as requested by Lawson Geeson, the agenda,
Very good.
and then move to approve.
I'll second that. Is there any other additions or any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, with that being done, before we move on, Allison Geeson is here from the Mound House. And Allison, you want to step up for just a second?
Good morning, Council and Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. Thank you for putting this on the agenda at last minute. This is the Mistletoe Market, Bob Blue Ribbon Events. The market is going to be on December 4th and 5th, and we'd like to get approval for this. The pending signatures are only the sheriff and the fire department, and I know that that's in process, but I wanted to see if we could get approval pending those signatures. It is a craft event at Bay Oaks, and we're excited to be able to have Blue Ribbons have some different events at Bay Oaks, so we're really excited about that. It's going to be about 60 booths. And some tents and selling some of the different things. They will have a couple of more events, but we're just asking approval for this one since this is the last council meeting before the event would be.
Thank you. Any questions for Allison? Oh. Okay, Allison, thank you very much. Thanks for coming in. And is there a motion to approve the permit for the Mistletoe Market?
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Good luck. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the reorganization of the council. As per our charter, every year we choose a mayor and a vice mayor. So I'll begin by opening up the floor for nomination for the position of mayor.
Mr. Murphy, are you interested in continuing?
Sure.
Then I would move to nominate Mr. Murphy for mayor.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Are there any other nominations for mayor? Okay, we'll close the nominations. All in favor of Murphy for mayor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, now we'll continue with vice mayor. I'll open up the floor for nominations for vice mayor.
Rexanne, would you be interested in continuing?
I am interested, thank you.
I'll nominate Rexanne.
Any other nominations? Okay, we'll close the nominations. All in favor of Vice Mayor Hasafras continuing as Vice Mayor Hasafras signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Okay. Don't have to change the towels or the business cards or anything like that. We'll move on. The next item is public comment. Madam Clerk.
Andy Johnson.
Morning,
Morning.
Dee Johnson, 311 Seminole Way. I'm here today to comment on the Bayside Park lighting acquisition. And I wanted to comment on the lighting plan in particular. Where to start? Steve's not here today, so I had to come in his stead. How is the town doing on lighting? Well, if we follow our ordinance, our lighting ordinance, and I'm not talking about the sea turtle lighting ordinance, we have an excellent lighting ordinance. And it's an ordinance that shares a lot of commonalities with ordinances in our surrounding communities, around the state and around the world. And that ordinance everyone was supposed to be compliant by 2010, so it's an old ordinance. Of course, it needs to be updated for LED lighting since LED lighting really wasn't used at that point in time. And there's only a few little things to update in there to help for safer lighting. So in 2020, actually, the Illumination Engineering Society and the Dark Sky Society paired up to have 5 principles, which I think I've sent you all before. And I think Suzanne is even from Town Lighting put in the lighting material for responsible lighting, outdoor lighting. So the first is all light should have a clear purpose. Does the plan for Bayside Park, does all light have a clear purpose? Before replacing or installing lights, determine if light is even needed. Consider how the light is used and will impact the area, including wildlife and the environment. So the second is targeted lighting. Light should be directed only where needed. Use shielding and careful aiming to target the direction of the light beam. So it points downward and does not spill beyond where it is needed. And that is in our lighting ordinance right now. If you look around town, that's not abided by, and hopefully we can do something about it because it leads to safer lighting. It creates less shadows. It also creates less glare. And that is something that is very important to the Public Safety Committee, as well as all residents, it should be. Low levels of light is the third priority. Light should be no brighter than necessary. Well, we got that one down with everything that we've approved so far. Amber LED lighting is no brighter than necessary. Well, it could be, but we're hoping to make sure we don't have glare or anything from that. Light should be used only when useful. It should be controlled, ensured when it is needed, dim when possible, and turned off when not needed. We keep lights on all night. I know some of the businesses, some of the brighter businesses do turn their lights off after hours, which is appropriate. And I think that is also in our current ordinance. And the last one is color. Use warmer color lights where possible. Limit the amount of shorter blue-violet light to the least amount needed. Well, the narrowband amber LEDs certainly do that because that's their whole purpose. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Cindy.
I have.
Oh, you have. Anyone else from the audience wish to comment this morning?
I was asked to,
Sir, stand up. Stand up and introduce yourself and
my name's Bill Snyder. I'm with Sesco Lighting. I assisted in the design of Bayside Park in regards to lighting and controls. Chelsea and Matt Horton asked me to attend today and address any of the concerns that the council may have.
On item F, Mr. Mayor.
okay. Well, hang around and we'll call you back up as need be. Thank you. Okay, before we move on, council, you'll indulge me for just 1 minute. We have a special guest here today visiting us, and that's Michael Hughes, Esquire, son of Dan Hughes, who's down visiting for a little while, and just want to say hello to you, Mike, and know that there's always a Hughes in this room somehow, one way or another, and we're glad to have you here, and actually we miss Dad very much for coming down. I don't know if you want to say hello or anything, but you're going to come on up. Being a Hughes, he's not short of words, so come on up.
Thank you very much. Ray, meant a lot to Dad to be part of this council for years, and miss him dearly, but you said he's here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Good to see you. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is local achievements and recognitions. Bill, we'll start down your way.
Okay, yeah, first I want to just hats off to for staff for securing that grant for Bay Oaks. That's a big plus for us. And it sounds like it was sought after and applied for aggressively and they successful. The other thing is the Baptist Church, more of an announcement that tomorrow from 9 to noon, you can get the first or second vaccine injection or the booster with no appointment. So the Baptist Church, 130 Connecticut Street, tomorrow from 9 to noon.
Pfizer, Bill?
It's Pfizer, yeah.
Okay.
All I have.
Couple things this morning, Mr. Mayor. I want to congratulate the Pink Shell Resort and Marina. They were recently awarded the Four Palm designation from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection Green Lodging Program, the highest level of recognition from the organization. Only one of 7 hotel properties in the state to achieve the Four Palm rating. To be designated, facilities must conduct a thorough property assessment and implement a specified number of environmental practices in 5 areas of sustainable operations, including communications and education, waste reduction, reuse and recycling, water conservation, energy efficiency, and indoor air quality. So hats off to the Pink Shell for their efforts. It was a nice piece in the Observer a couple weeks ago about their award. Also want to commend the Fort Myers Beach Fire Department. They had a wonderful open house on Saturday at their Linnell station. During the time I was there, I saw our new fire chief, Ron Martin, and the chair of the fire commission, Larry Wood, and the vice chair, Ron Fleming. And I also saw Jim Nickel, who's a member of the commission, and Roger was there. And they just had a great turnout of the public. They were showing new equipment. All their team was there to answer any questions the community had. And I just thought that was a really nice gesture on behalf of the fire department and all of their teams. So just wanted to commend them for their efforts.
Council Adult, just so, Fire Commissioner John Bennett was also there, just so we just.
Great, I must have missed John. Yeah, so thank you, Roger.
Okay.
I'm sure we'd all like to express our condolences to the List family upon the passing of Mark List. Mark was married to a two-term council member, Joe List. We were just discussing earlier how our families suffer sometimes as a result of our service. And I'm sure that Mark had to put up with a lot for the years that Joe served us. And we express our condolences to their entire family and for all of the things that they've done for the many services that their family has provided to the town of Fort Myers Beach. I'd also like to recognize Mr. Veach for attending the second level Florida League of Cities class. I think you're the first person in a while that's achieved that, and I appreciate the fact that you took the time to do it. I'm sure you've learned some stuff you'll be sharing with us.
Or I'll highly recommend it, you still have term to serve.
The 3 issues I had, or the 3 comments I was gonna make have already been made, so.
As have mine, but I echo the Vice Mayor's remarks to the List family. Our hearts go out to Joe and the kids and so forth, and wish you well in the days ahead. Okay, next item is advisory committees, items and reports. Are there any members of any advisory committees here that wish to speak? Seeing any, we'll move on. Next item is approval of minutes. We have 4 sets of minutes here. The November 1st, 2021 Town Council meeting, November 1st joint session with the LPA, November 4th Management and Planning session, and November 4th joint session with the Public Safety Committee. Is there a motion to approve these minutes, or is there any discussion on amending?
I have one correction on page 13 which is the second set of minutes. We had elevated Scott Stafford to council member, whereas it should say that he's an LPA member. Not that we want to ever discourage him from running someday, but currently.
Would have been quite an elevation.
Yes.
Okay,
And I don't see anybody else looking to amend, so I would move to.
I have one other.
Okay, go ahead.
There was one, the title on page 20, that was a joint meeting with the Public Safety Committee. They have it down as the Management and Planning session titled. So we just need to correct that title. Other than that, I have nothing else.
Those two amendments, I'd move to approve the 4 sets of minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a Fort Myers Beach camera project, Greenwire Technology Solutions, and Mr. Joe Parker is here to speak with us this morning from Greenwire Technology Solutions. Morning.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, everyone in attendance, I appreciate the time. The company works closely with the Lee County Sheriff's Office on a number of projects, including Community Connect, which is a business-based initiative to hook up cameras to the real-time information center, as well as their internal use cameras in the department. As such, when Commander Hewlin discussed this project, he reached out to us and said, can you give us some background and some ideas for proceeding on getting some cameras out here on Fort Myers Beach. I want to start here with the presentation he made and probably has already been presented to you, but just to give you guys a quick refresh on what exactly was being proposed and what they wanted to do. How do I signify changing a slide? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you could just
Okay.
say, he's listening, you just say, next slide.
Okay, perfect. Basically, there'd be two wish list items for the Sheriff's Department in this. The first would be a set of license plate readers, a couple at each of the bridge locations, to kind of capture any license plates going on and off the island. That would be a company that is different from mine. They do a service for the Sheriff's Office across Lee County. They have a really good recognition system that really allows them to effectively really allows them to, tighten up their investigations and really track, offenders down in a much faster amount of time. So this is just a quick review of the cost for that. $500 one-time install fee, $2,500 per year on each camera. Again, per my conversations with him last week, they're looking at 4 of those, one for each direction of traffic at each bridge. Again, they have their annual cost, which includes the maintenance and their cellular uplink. Those. So I think that's pretty easy to understand. It's a very simple setup. The one thing I was not able to confirm with him was where exactly they want to mount those. And I'll get to why that's important in a second, but I do believe that they could be mounted directly to the bridge structure or something close to that. These are the areas they wish to address. So in addition to having the license plate cameras at the bridge, what they want is a real-time video stream of any cars passing over. The license plate cameras are very focused in. They are in use just to capture the license plates on the vehicles. They do not capture most of the identifying characteristics of the vehicle, who may be in it, any of that kind of information. So they want to supplement that with cameras at each bridge location that will be mounted up a bit higher to kind of get the overall gist of the flow of traffic and who may be in the vehicles, what the vehicles might be doing, et cetera. In addition to that, there were 3 other locations at the pier, Times Square, the pier area there, 1250 Estero Boulevard, at the beach side, and then the 1600 Estero Boulevard at the vehicle side, the intersection in front of Hooters, I believe. Initially, when he surveyed it and went over with the council, they mentioned attaching the cameras to poles. I'm going to go over in a minute why that's not really feasible. And I think that pretty much some pictures of the various areas that they're looking to address. These are, per them, this is the biggest areas of concern. They're at the pier, 1250, the beach side there, just a little bit north of Lani Kai, and the Lani Kai area.
Just had a quick question. Roger, would you mind just sort of setting the table for those who may be watching? Is this a company that will be in partnership to the presentation we heard before or in competition? What is just sort of give us a little setup.
So as I understand, there's basically 2 styles of cameras. One style that we're looking at deals with a license plate readers and vehicle recognition. Now, those cameras also capture some seconds worth of footage, but that's one style of camera. So that's really looking for a vehicle or a victim or a witness saw a vehicle, and they use that to identify, find the vehicle, find where it's been. Perhaps, so they might say, well, the black vehicle, it was SUV, but I didn't get the license plate number, but it had a bumper sticker on the back. With those cameras, they can find that vehicle. To find it if they say, well, I know it was a black and they know it was a Buick, whatever, they could find the vehicle. So, or I know the license plate number. That's that system. It's really concentric to vehicles and pedestrians, the way we envision using that system. And that was a gentleman who's here from Flock, made a presentation, 2 weeks ago. Besides that system, there's a secondary system, which is more like a video surveillance camera. And those are the ones that Greenwire is talking about now and showing the proposed locations for.
He's here to complement what we heard previously then, is that right?
That's correct. It would be layers, if you will, with two distinct different functions in terms of providing the widest possible net of CCTV coverage for the island.
That's fine. I just wanted to set that up because I think folks who might be
I
watching might
think
be
he didn't say
confused.
it
Yeah.
distinctly, but I think what we did, just so everyone understands, is we went to the sheriff's office and we all went to their intelligence center. And we asked them, we said, look, we want, if we're going to invest in a system, we want a system that you would like us to use, you feel comfortable with, you're already working with those people, you have a relationship with them. And fits in with your overall countywide scheme of closed circuit TV, surveillance, protection for the communities. So they provided us with the two different vendors, Lock, which is the license plate reader company, Greenwire, who has these more like security cameras have on your house, type of thing. And these provide a 24-hour live stream to the LCSO Intelligence Center. Now, they don't have someone there staring at the screen, but they have someone who's monitoring the screens, which means they're flicking from camera to camera at times. Or as soon as they hear of an incident or other intelligence, then they're focusing in on that particular camera. But they have more cameras than people that they could be constantly watching. But they could pull it up anytime they need to, whether it's just a routine check or because of an incident that's being reported to them or intelligence they receive to monitor an area.
That's great.
Is that a fair way to present it?
100%.
I think that setup is helpful because somebody who might be watching may not be aware of the foundation. So that's helpful, helpful background. Thank you. Sorry, please continue.
Apologies, I wasn't aware they'd already done their presentation, but yes, we'd be working in supplement to them.
Okay.
They're more of a focus on the license plate aspect in general. So again, this is the Carlos Pass Bridge, and again, what they're looking for is the directed license plate cameras, but in addition to that, having some general overview cameras that would view the entire area on this bridge as well.
Ask you something. The camera there at the bottom of the bridge, that's not going to be able to identify people fishing underneath that bridge, is it?
Not the one, actually, not underneath the bridge, but the one that.
That's good. Just want to clarify that.
No, none of them, they have to be under the bridge, so.
You're worried the
No,
cameras
we-
that
we-
identify the
Yeah,
size?
we won't have to verify how large the catch is.
All right.
I believe that was it for that one. So that was just a quick review of the sheriff's presentation. Then I wanted to do another one here just to kind of give you some overview on some general project parameters for a typical project that we would do. How we would install them, how things would look when they're done, et cetera. So again, as we just discussed, this would work in conjunction with the license plate camera system that was previously presented. We're looking for recordings of traffic incidents, for people fleeing the scene of a crime, people involved in crimes. I know in particular of concern to them was the area generally be on the beach side behind the Lani Kai. I guess there's been some incidents there that have had some difficulty tracking down. So I know, again, that was one of their primary hotspots. Just in general, to allow the sheriff's department to more actively respond to real-time incidents, but also track down perpetrators after said incidents have occurred. So one thing I want to, again, I anticipated some questions about this, the differences between the real-time system and the license plate cameras. And this is not a competition. They're both vitally important, but there are going to be some very distinct differences in cost and installation styles. The real time, we're talking about cameras mounted at height, usually on a pole. We're trying to view an entire area, versus the traffic cameras are cameras that are focused in to catch license plates. That's their primary job. The real-time cameras, a lot of times will use PTZ or multi-imager, and a PTZ is a drivable camera that the sheriff's office can use again in real time to find, track suspects, zoom in on them, track them up and down the beach. It has to be used in real time, so there is no real value to those cameras after the fact if they're not being used while the incident's occurring. But when you have a incident, for example, where there might be a fight on the beach and there may be officers coming to respond to the incident, people in the real-time information center can use that camera to track the suspects and see where they're going and what they've done after that fact.
Is there a reason why there's no recording of the data from these cameras?
No, it is, my apologies. It is definitely being recorded. But this would be a good time for a video, but the PTZ camera specifically, of which I've done a preliminary quote, like just a rough idea kind of quote for you guys. We've only got 2 of those on stands right now. But those allow you, for example, you could be standing at the pier, you could have a camera on the pier, and you could see somebody down in front of Lani Kai with that camera by zooming way in on it. It really allows you to really focus in on a specific area, track suspects, etc. But one of the things that kind of happens with that is people get the idea that they can see that level of detail at any time. That camera is going to be recording at all times. It's just not going to be, it's only going to be recording what it's actively looking at.
Which means if you're not aimed the right way, you're not aimed the right way.
Exactly. Which is why for the areas that I've, spec some of those cameras, we've also supplemented that with some fixed cameras to make sure that there's a camera always looking at those general areas. So, where with the traffic cameras, we're only going to see about one picture or maybe, up to 6 seconds per vehicle. There's a very short burst transmission of a very small amount of data. With these cameras, you're talking about lots of data all the time. So their data requirements are a lot more robust than the traffic cameras are, which means you're going to have a bigger internet pipe, which I'll get to in just a second. And of course, these, again, because they're operating full time, not just when a car passes by, they're going to require more power to operate. So, a little solar panel, unfortunately, does not cut it with these. You have to have either a solar array or a full-time power connection. Questions on any of that so far? Forgive me if I get a little too technical here.
Hey, Paul, if you're uncomfortable with the mask,
I've had a couple employees over the last couple of weeks with COVID. I have tested negative as of Friday,
Okay.
but in abundance of caution, I'll
gotcha,
keep you guys safe.
gotcha, thank you.
How many of those pan tilt zoom cameras did you say?
I currently only have 2 quoted. What I wanted to do is give you guys some options and some pricing. Just because as with everything, oh, there we go. It's a balance of needs and cost. The sheriff's department obviously has a wish list that they want that may not at the end of the day be palatable to you. But there's 2, there could be 3 of those cameras. It's what they use. If you look at their towers that they deploy, for example, there's one deployed on the beach now. Those utilize one 360-degree fixed cameras and 4 of those PTZs, allowing them to, from the Arctic, track up to 4 different individual subjects at one time. So they're a really useful tool for, real-time interventions. But again, not quite as useful for reviewing past events.
You said that these could be powered by solar, just a bigger source.
Yes, that is definitely doable. So basically in each of the area, we have a couple of cameras to cover, the field that they're mainly interested in. And then on a couple of them, we have a PTZ to kind of supplement that and give them that real-time intervention ability that they're looking for. As I mentioned before, the PTZs are drivable. They can also, with the PTZs, you can also set those up to do a patrol. So for example, if there's one camera mounted on the beach side, you can have it set up to zoom on a very large area of the beach back and forth on its own volition. It'll just, go on a preset pattern to kind of see a little bit further than the normal cameras can see on their own. There is some AI ability to that as well, but I prefer not to get into that on a heavily populated beach like Fort Myers Beach tends to be. That's problematic, and I don't want to oversell any system. Really not a great. And as I mentioned, they can't see where they're not looking. We went over that already. With the cameras here, one of the biggest areas, the biggest weaknesses of most camera systems, I'm sure you've seen them, is nighttime performance. The cameras that are specified in my example quote are all very, very good, very powerful nighttime cameras. You can see we're about 150 to 200 feet away to the back edge line of the woods in this particular picture, and it looks like it's daylight. That's one of the benefits of these systems over some of the ones you might see installed on a small business or home. They're very, very good at making nighttime imagery usable. Just for reference, this picture, if you were to stand outside at this time of night where this is at, your eyes would have trouble distinguishing the tree line back there. They do a really good job with seeing what's going on. This is a salt environment, so these cameras are NEMA 4 rated. They're basically overrated for typical outdoor environments because of the challenges you face in a beachside deployment. All do so, even though they have the nighttime visibility here, on a perfectly dark night where maybe the moon and stars are not out and it's just really maybe the power's out and there's no light available, they do have a supplemental IR light so they can see at night. That IR light, based on my research, they actually use those on turtle nests to watch the hatchlings come out with that IR light, so it's obviously not a turtle attractant. I could not find any published data on that, but again, all of the major studies that I looked at indicated that was not a wavelength that was harmful to turtles.
These full color night vision?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. There are NDA compliant cameras as well, NDAA, which means they're not manufactured or have any ties to China, as that just became illegal. This is just a basic outline. The shapes that you see there indicate the full coverage scope of each camera. Basically what, at this particular location, what each camera would be able to see within the view of the fixed camera itself. Makes sense? So basically each camera is about 90 degrees, so that this would offer them a 180-degree view of the bridge and the intersection Times Square. And for the beach, that blue does not show up very well, but we've got a 180-degree view of the beach. Then as you can see, just as a marker there, I've indicated the PTZ, which has the ability to sweep and zoom on any of the areas on the beach. For reference, I think it's on the next slide. This is a PTZ camera on a dock. This is actually not as much zoom as the ones that I've quoted for this project have. In the picture, if you can barely make out the dock at the left side, kind of really hard to see. It's there. And then on the right side, you can see where it was zoomed in to that dock, giving you a bit of clarity as to what's there.
How far is that?
About 1,500 feet.
Oh.
It's really quite helpful. And the other cameras the PTCs that I have quoted as well are laser focused. They use a laser to focus the camera, which means that when you zoom in and move it, it's instantly on target and on focus, and they're really, really.
Are they affected much then, with the laser technology, by wind? If they're on a pole and the pole is moving?
Yes, they can be, which is why it's very important. When we mount a PTZ, so one of the things I'll get into next is mounting types. We mount one to an aluminum pole. We actually fill the interior of those hollow core aluminum poles up to 4 feet above the ground with concrete to kind of, take that problem away. As you've said, it's definitely, when you're zooming in that far, like anything, if you hold a pair of binoculars up and you start shaking a little bit, you're definitely going to notice when you have that much zoom.
The wind speed.
This is just a general, example of what a camera would look like at distance. I don't know that that's particularly helpful here, but it just kind of shows you 150 feet. You've got pretty good visibility. Again, at night, everything looks good. Nice, sharp, crisp, clear. So basically this one, I entered discussions with FPL, obviously, as you saw from the Sheriff's Department's presentation a few minutes ago. Their idea was to put them on FPL poles. FPL has broadly shut me down on that. That is not a thing that they do. They will allow the Sheriff's Department to mount cameras to their poles, but only for temporary warranted situations. So that's not going to be an option, which means that we would have to install our own poles for the sake of this project. We have a couple of options with that as far as basically aluminum is the standard. It's the most cost effective. It holds up well. It's easy and quick to deploy. We can also do concrete. Those are obviously a little bit stiffer and sturdier, but the price is significantly more. And then I, put in wood poles, but I don't believe that's a good fit for this location. Just even from an aesthetic standpoint, they're just not very attractive.
Is 18 feet enough?
Yes. Any of the locations that we've surveyed here, 18 feet would be sufficient. You could make a case for a PTZ at the one beach location being slightly higher, but I don't think it's necessary, particularly not with the issues that you would have getting a concrete pole sunk at that beach location.
Unless there's a 30-foot surge predicted to come in.
That would be unfortunate. I'm pretty sure at that point, though, there'll be other
Problems
issues.
with that.
We won't be able to watch it.
This is an example of an aluminum and concrete pole.
From a,
They're very basic. They can be colored any way that you like. And they're, pretty unobtrusive. Concrete poles, obviously, a little bit more noticeable. And one of the reasons I use this picture is if you look at the top there, you'll see some on the concrete pole in the image on the right, you'll see some point-to-point units. Those are also factored into, what we'd like to do with this if possible. So this is where, let's get a little bit, there's some options here for connectivity. Ideally in this situation, I don't know what I know that when Roger and I discussed it, he said there might be some ability to work with private business. Ideally, working with Lonnie Kai as a sort of hub and putting a couple of small radios up on their roof would allow us to service the majority of these units from one internet connection. In fact, we could even bring them back to here, to your building, which would negate the need for a standalone internet connection for all 4 locations on the north end of the beach. The problem again there being that we need height, so that's really the only structure that I can see that would give us that unobstructed access to each one of those locations. We would still need, sorry, your question?
have you posed that to the management down there yet?
I have not. I wanted to get your guys' input before I did that and make sure that was something that was amenable to you. So I had not done anything with that as of yet. No problem.
What about the existing cell tower that's on the road? Is that a viable option or no?
It's really complicated. There has to be a space lease on that tower, which actually, let me uncomplicate it. Because of the leasing arrangement that would have to be made, it would actually be cheaper to literally put a Comcast connection at every one of these poles than to go through that process. So I don't think that's really an option there, just because of the cost of leasing space on a cell tower. Unless there's some program that I'm not aware of, but again, on that, I would say generally that would not be an option.
What would be the cost? You mentioned a direct line from Comcast to each location.
About anywhere from $150 to $100 a month, depending on how nice I can make Comcast play. I am working too, with the sheriff's office right now, and this is one of those things that, like FP&L moves somewhat slowly. There is a government program that Verizon offers for cellular. In general, we can't do cellular because cellular data is exclusively denies the use of surveillance streaming. They don't want you to do that because obviously it takes up a lot of their bandwidth. But there is exceptions carved out for city and law enforcement. So we're working with them. If that does come through, if they give us a go ahead to use that, that would be more cost effective than Comcast and much faster and easier to deploy. But I don't have a solid number on that yet, or even if they'll let it be used for this specific use case. Yeah, so basically we have, the ability, we hopefully can use cellular, and I'm hoping to have some more solid numbers for you here shortly. Comcast is an option. Again, ideally, I think in this case, the point-to-point option would be best for this particular installation. The questions about that one?
Close to wrapping up, Joe.
Yes, I'm all done, sorry.
Any other questions for Joe while he's on that? Okay.
That was it. So just power is the other consideration. It looks like, I don't know, there's obviously still some exploration I need to do here, but there's some power meters down by the bridges that I would assume are DOT meters. The Sheriff's Department also has close ties with DOT and can likely allow us to tie into those. But power is the other consideration. Again, we can do solar. The one downside to solar here is obviously storm, the wind zone that it's in means that we probably have to do ground mounted solar instead of mounting them directly to the pole. Given the space, that may not be a concern at all, but it is an option for sure. That's it. Any questions?
Much questions for Joe?
I have a question. I don't know if you can go back to the slide of the beach coverage or not. It shows no coverage of the mall area, either direction. And my gut reaction is that there are a lot of people who go down there and drink or shop that do not go out onto the beach.
Mall area, is this, you mean?
I'm talking about
Times Square.
yeah, behind where those,
She's talking about like the top.
Oh, yeah, I didn't do a slide for the Times Square
so there's
cameras.
more cameras
Of the
that would cover that area?
Yes,
Okay.
my apologies. I was
That's-
trying to, but there are more cameras at the pier location. I believe this is the Lonnie Kyle location, correct?
Looks like.
No, that looks like Times Square.
It's Lonnie
By the
Kyle
beach.
Cottage.
As quoted, I have two fixed cameras and a PTZ at the foot of the pier, essentially. It would be very easy to any of these locations to add cameras. Most of your initial cost for this is going to be wrapped up in, the power connection, the internet uplink, the poles. Once you get those things established, each one of these poles could support up to 8 different cameras on each pole.
Just wanted to indicate that I would like to see full coverage of, probably 360 at the pier area. I think we need, be my gut reaction.
Oh,
I see now, this is 1250. It looked like the Times Square L there, but it's not. So I don't know, since you don't have a slide of that, I don't know what it is that you're planning, but I would just like to indicate, I think we probably need 360 here.
Absolutely. Again, this whole thing, I was just given some general ground to cover by the sheriff's office and making further decisions would be kind of, two-way process where I would need some, input on you guys on what you wanted to look for. And we can go
Understood.
from there.
Roger, does the town only have power at like Times Square and the parks and
Well, if you recall the entrance and exit signs that we were talking about, the new ones that we showed you at the last council meeting, those, we're anticipating having some electricity to those, although those details are not finalized. Theoretically, the vicinity of that sign, if we could plant a pole, then we could also accommodate the power that they would need for the over-the-bridge cameras coming onto the island. So I think we have an issue, we will be able to address that concern there. These other locations, as was alluded to, our hope was that we could partner with some of the private properties from a standpoint of them allowing us to plant a pole. We would pay for, obviously, the electricity and the internet or whatever we need to do for the video streaming. Basically work with them to or any equipment or plant a pole. So we get down that far down the road, we will begin to work with Greenwire to try to create those community partnerships. The reason was to bring Greenwire in, of course, today was A, to educate you. D, help you understand is basically two different systems with two different missions, if you will. And then third of all, to make you aware that based on the allocation that the council has initially set, we might not be able to do both unless we prioritized. So at some point, we'll need to have a conversation if we're going to do one then the other, or do both. So obviously, we work with Greenwire to tighten up their estimate based on whatever feedback you have today, and bring that back to you so you know what actual adjustment to the budget we would have to make. But in terms of I believe in terms of addressing the issues that the Lee County Sheriff's Office has identified as their most pressing concerns, a combination of these two systems would do. So comfortable, we'll move forward and try to figure out how we can most cost effectively do this with perhaps some community partners in these areas, if that's agreeable and acceptable to you all.
My gut reaction is that it's probably more cost efficient to do both at the same time. It seems to me that we need both, and if we have to do a budget adjustment in order to achieve that, be willing to look
Let
at
me be
that.
clear, it's not a money problem, because as you recall, we have money in contingency. We put
Right.
money in contingency. It is an allocation problem. It's just
Right.
not in the budget.
But I'm just for the record saying I'm willing to look at reallocation for achieving both, because it seems to me they're both necessary. It would certainly be more cost effective to do them both at the same time.
Roger, you would bring back a thing to us.
Right, so there would be a piggyback
Combination.
contract for both Block and Greenwire, I would anticipate at this point, to implement their respective systems. At a future council meeting, and at that point, we would know how much above the current budget we would be going.
I would say that the real-time cameras complement the license plate cameras very effectively, and I like the idea of combining both of them together and doing them both at the same time. I think it's important that we defer to the sheriff's office on location, but in consultation with the town, so we're working together. But I think this is an effective system, so it would have my support.
I would also just want to, agree, I support the hybrid system. I do think that I'd like to look at the cost and look at the placement and with an appropriate scale. So I know one time we were talking about 5 sets or 10 flock cameras. And I wonder if we really need that many. for all
No, I know,
surveillance
well,
systems.
obviously, at that point, Block not aware that we were talking to Greenwire, and Greenwire was not, as indicated, was not clearly aware we were talking to Flock, because we didn't want to prejudice the one of them and sort of get their raw ideas. Would be the best scenario. So, yeah, there is some duplication in what's being proposed or shown to you today versus what Flock submitted to us and we shared with you. And of course, we would eliminate those duplications.
The town have access for traffic reasons to these cameras as well?
Absolutely.
The base of the bridge or wherever?
Yeah, so the answer is that we want to be careful about that because of public records laws and other things. So the answer is that we could have access. Whether we will and to what extent will be a decision the council will ultimately make. But we definitely want to make it with John's guidance with respect to not being, someone got into a fight with their partner and they want to, they want us to give a video of what happened on the beach or something. We don't want to be involved.
Never thought of that. Good thinking.
We don't want to be doing, I don't know, what's that show, Jerry Springer? So the answer is both systems will allow us to access, and to the extent that that we get it and who has it and how available it is, that'll be a policy decision eventually of the council.
Like, because we have existing traffic cameras now, I think at like Newton Park.
So with those, it's basically, we don't store those, it's just basically a live stream in the second, if you don't see it that second, it's gone. So, in this case, it's gonna be a little different, particularly with these cameras, because the information is being stored. That's one of the other reasons why I wanted to work through LCSO, so in the event that we did get a request, it would go through them.
We are storing, or
They're
the
not
sheriff's
storing.
office storing? Everything is just streaming through us. So that end, if we have one streaming traffic camera, we could stream them.
Well, the answer is that we can stream these, but as was indicated, there's a benefit to some storage. And one of the things would be to continue that storage, like with every other camera that's currently in existence with LCSO through them, however they do it. And therefore, hopefully, we're not looking at or saving pictures as Councilman Allers, is that a capability? Yes, it's a capability. Something that we should do, or is it something we should be, you need a copy of a video or something? Should we just keep it ourselves and ask the sheriff for it? That would be part of that policy discussion.
Right. Oh, thanks so much for coming out today and
Thanks for having me.
introducing, look forward to, in what this produces down the road here and move on from there.
Just to summarize, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to go forward and try to finalize arrangement with both Flock and with Greenwire and bring that back to the council for your review and consideration and potential approval.
In that, can you update some of your diagrams that you had there as far as coverage for people that may not understand?
Yeah, we'll attach that to the item so we'll know exactly what we're getting.
Helpful. I normally do a video walk.
Come back up, Joe.
It's helpful. I normally do it's actually just a YouTube video walkthrough that has live camera footage, that has all of the locations mapped out where I can kind of play with what distances and ranges we could achieve with the different cameras and all that. I could certainly make one up for you here, and I think it would be a little bit more helpful in kind of understanding the views and all that than what I was able to do here today.
I tell you what, if you make it up, if you give it to the town manager, let him review that first, and then we'll decide
If
whether
you
to put it out
do
or not.
that and send it to me, obviously I could disseminate that to the council and the council could look at that at their leisure.
Perfect.
So, and my intent is, to be clear, is to get this to you as quickly as we can, probably in January. Forward and get implementation so that you'll have 6 months of experience of the system operating. So as you consider what you want to do with the 22 budget, you will have some experience with these two systems in place theoretically for you to base your judgments.
You know, I'm a fan of the shows FBI and Law and Order and, Chicago PD. And that's the first thing they do when the cops roll up on the scene is, who's got video? Who's of it? So that would certainly be helpful, I'm sure, to our sheriff. So thank you again, sir, and forward to your work product. Okay, the next item is the consent agenda, and that's the New Year's Eve fireworks and bridge closure. And this is a motion to approve the temporary southbound closure of the Matanzas Pass Bridge, southbound traffic on December 31st, 2021 at midnight until January 1st, 2022 at 1:30 a.m. for the New Year's Eve fireworks event. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move.
Moved, is there a second?
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item, we'll go into the hearings. The first one is the ordinance 21-07, which is the Commercial Boulevard Zoning District. This is an ordinance of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, amending the Town of Fort Myers Beach Land Development Code, Division 5, Subdivision 5, Sections 34 through 701 through 34 through 707, PB zoning district, to clarify what constitutes an existing use and how and when that existing use can be continued or modified. Allow the continuation of existing uses, providing for severability, codification, scrivener's errors, conflicts of law, and an effective date. And this is the second reading for final adoption.
Mr. Mayor, this item has been properly noticed and is accordingly properly before you all for second reading and adoption.
Staff is being summoned.
So, Roger, we had asked at the last reading that we be provided with a list of the businesses in the CB zoning district and what their history was.
Yeah, I think Carl said he was working on that. I don't know if, Carl, do you have the list of the CB properties?
Let's start us out here. Jason.
Sure. Good morning, Jason Green, Community Development. Before you is the draft of the changes that were discussed about. I think what we're going to get into is a conversation with the businesses that are in there. Because, you know, there's the challenging ones are probably the multi-tenant center ones, because those uses change regularly. But this obviously is proposed to change or to allow for flexibility in that. There's also some change language in there related to modifying kind of the definition for the purposes of CB, what the bank is with a drive-through, and treating that more as a retail use versus a specific an office use. Main changes from the last time. Again, it's a commercial boulevard district. The commercial boulevard zoning district is primarily in the boulevard future land use category.
With this is helpful. Okay. Questions for Mr. Green?
Jason, received an email about a specific amount of square footage from Ms. Grady. That's not in here. Well, in E, I'm looking at E. I don't see it in. I'm just, you know, I'm just concerned with the previously utilized, as I'm looking at page 30 of the packet in case anybody's wondering. Letter E says conversion of existing space previously used as a financial institution with drive-through to small retail store with outdoor display. Outdoor display may be located in the area previously utilized as a drive-through. Parking spaces may not be used. It seems very vague because that's a big area there, although there's no parking in that outside area where the drive-through is. I'm just thinking, could a business owner look at that as this entire area is the drive-through, as opposed to the specific square footage that was suggested?
Yeah, I think, yes, probably. There's some flexibility there, or some defining that. It may be able to do better, if that's what your point is. There's also some outdoor display code language in the code already that limits some of that. A little bit in conflict with that because it's specific to this area. like, we can take a look at that and see if that's there, but she wants to address,
I was just, as I mentioned at the
Interesting
last
part.
reading, I was just a little curious or worried that this may open up some more issues for these other properties that were.
yeah, there's not a lot of drive-throughs, but yes, I understand your point.
Well, I mean, Councilman, one of the things we could add is, portion covered or no more than two,
Yeah,
two
some-
times the portion covered. Might, address your concern.
Just because this particular one was put in specifically for a specific property, and that area that's being considered as an outdoor display is quite a large area. I
Yeah.
just prefer it be a little more.
Yeah,
Good point.
well, wisdom of that itself is a question, whether we should be doing that, but, and then how do you sort of put four corners on it?
Just real quick, Jason, I commend you for your work on this. Could you take this up 10,000 feet just for those folks who missed the first reading? And the practical impact of this, for the businesses at Seagrave Plaza and at the medical center, just sort of give a lay perspective of what impact this will have from a practical standpoint?
So the way that the CB district was drafted, I think we've talked about this in some other workshops and stuff, is very, very specific and limiting, per the use, right? So if you had office, you could only go down in what they were determining as intense. A restaurant was kind of considered a more intense, down to retail, down to an office. And as you change the use, especially in a multi-tenant building like Seagrave Plaza, once you left that more intense use and went to a lower use, you couldn't go back. It was kind of like a ladder, right? If once you went down a rung, you couldn't go back up. And that was challenging to some of the businesses within the strip center because those walls move, the units change, and sometimes those businesses change out like that. And so I don't know that the town's ever really done a good job of tracking that. And that was the challenge of trying to figure out how do you allow some of that flexibility of stuff that's already kind of consistent with their neighbor, retail next to a retail, but also being limited and cognizant of the fact that the point to the CB district was to limit intensification adjacent to residential.
That's very helpful, thanks. And the list that Carl handed out, I appreciate the list, but could he give some examples of, it's just.
So you have mostly some offices, you have some retail. Carl, I don't think we have any medical. I think there's a medical. We have a medical office, but there's mostly the retail and the office is pretty traditional. What most people are finding is they want to do more retail in the CB, but it's an office and they can't go up that ladder, so to speak.
There was nothing in this list that gives the town staff any concern, I guess is my question.
No, I don't think so. I think it's somewhat of a unique, what we're kind of trying to deal with a specific issue. And please remember that the conversation about the CB district, the boulevard, future land use category, that's all going to get rediscussed as part of the comprehensive plan to reimagine and try to do something different with that.
Thank you, that was very helpful.
I would comment on those lists is that it doesn't really tell us what the effect of this as it's written is going to be, because we don't know what the history of any of these properties are. So if they're office now and they were at one time a restaurant, we don't know. I don't know the effect. I was thinking about this quite a bit over the last period of time, and I'm not particularly happy with the resolution because I think it seems to be more of a Band-Aid we're applying to what was a Band-Aid years ago. That the CB zoning district is unique because it's spread along our narrow island. And it is the one thing that we really have as a tool to make our community or keep our community as walkable as possible. Because these businesses are spread along the island, and since we're along Skinny Island, the target is to be a 5-minute, have services in a 5-minute walk of where they live. And these districts are, I think, very important for that. I would really recommend that we rethink this ordinance entirely and start talking about what the CB district means. And without looking at the history, allow a property intensity based on the parking and based on the other factors. And it's another potential we can provide incentives towards some of the models that we have been professing as our vision as to have potentially affordable workforce housing above and a business below in some of these locations. Develop in a way that to more of a vision, because now we're in the process of going through and doing our review of the comp plan, a review of our town codes. And it seems like instead of doing something that seems like a Band-Aid fix, when we're doing this visionary, approach to looking at our comp plan, that now would be a time to try to apply some of that vision into this ordinance.
My only response would be, are those two things that you mentioned mutually exclusive? In other words, can we take this step today and then address the broader issues as we look at the comp plan? I don't think that prevents us from doing that. Is that fair?
I think that probably from a business standpoint, the people who own these properties and are looking at potentially redeveloping or changing their use, then I think it's valuable to them to know what it is they can do and cannot do. We take the example of Ms. Grady's client's property. Now, when I look at it, they have ample parking. They're probably, there's probably redevelopment they could do with the space they have, with the parking they have, would be maybe a more intense use. But going back to the neighborhood walkability thing, that if intensity doesn't affect me as much as density, doesn't bother as much as density, because people typically don't drive on and off the island to go to a particular restaurant here. If there is a restaurant or a shop, it's usually used by people who are already here on the island, as opposed to additional density, which means you're putting more people and causing more traffic issues. So I think that if we really look at this more as a visionary, holistic thing, there may be options for the client to do that they weren't considering because they're not available under this interim fix.
I hear what you're saying. I think that particularly just looking at the practical dynamic of what's before us today, we've got a company that wants to sell patio furniture, and I can't imagine there's going to be a lot of people driving from off Fort Myers Beach to buy. There's a lot of options for patio furniture in the region. Seems like this would be an opportunity for local island residents to walk over, take their bike or drive, to look at patio furniture and have it delivered to them right on the island. Might actually mitigate some of those issues you were concerned about. And I hate to have them hold a business plan when we could fix that and still address the broader concerns that you, I think, rightfully put forth. I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, let's just continue on with the process today. And if at some point it looks like it's going south, then you can come back in and propose what you have in mind. Is that reasonable?
How about, well, my preference would be to pull this and workshop it and really talk through it now. But I would certainly, for the sake of expediency, I would agree to do that as long as we maybe put something on a workshop. Talk about the CB district, talk about our vision for the town with this comp plan, right, coming up. And if the client is satisfied that, this furniture is the best use of his property, understanding that there may be something happening in the future that may broaden that, and that's his decision. So I'm okay with that.
Well, then why don't we just continue on with this today and where it takes us. Understand your concerns.
Just don't want to lose the opportunity to not create the best town we can going forward.
Yeah, I understand. Well taken.
Just to refresh everyone's memory, Mr. Mayor. So this is applying zoning to this list that you provided today, as undescriptive as it is, I guess. But that's option A. Option B is you could just deal with the zoning on this particular parcel if you wish. There's a route to do that. I'm not making Councilor Beach's argument. I just want to make sure you're aware that that's an option as well.
Well, I'll tell you how I feel as it's a Band-Aid approach. Well, it is, but it's been brought forward to us by the owners of the property. They'd like to get some satisfaction. I wouldn't mind giving it to them, tell you the truth. So I'd be willing to proceed with this and see what we can do for this particular parcel, and then go with the other ones on Moss at another on another occasion.
Although it was like the town manager was saying, I mean, there is a course to change the use of a property by going through a planning district. And if what you're saying is just for one property, then are we basically debating that process which is stated in the ordinances?
I don't think it's just one I think some of us are concerned that this, not concerned, but encouraged that this might be helpful to the medical center, which is a different property. So I mean, I think this could have a positive, broader effect until we address some of the challenges you're talking about in the comp plan. This could be a nice jumpstart to some properties that have some challenges right now. And this could open some nice opportunities.
You know, oh, go ahead.
We just received this list that we asked for at the last meeting, and I've been sitting here while you guys are talking and looking up these properties. I have some concerns about going forward because of the properties that I'm finding on this list. They weren't identified, so I had to sit here and look for them. One of them is the very large office building next to the 7-Eleven further south on the island. I have no idea what the ramifications of this are for that property because I don't know what all has been in there, et cetera. I want to give fast relief to this property owner, but I also don't want to forge ahead and affect this entire list of properties that we haven't even had a chance to figure out what we're doing. I mean,
How would we accomplish that?
I don't know, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm sort of edging toward Bill's position just because I see that there are unforeseen consequences. There may not be if I had a chance to look at this, but being handed it today and then having to sit here and look these things up. I don't know if there's some way we could give them immediate relief somehow without impacting this entire list.
You know, Madam Vice Mayor, if I may, I shared some of the same concerns that you both have. As I read through it several times, it gave me a little bit of ease reading that we're not extending the use of what they've been able. Am I correct in saying this, Jason, that this is not extending any use to a particular property based on something that is here now, but something that was used on this parcel before?
Correct, because again, once you go down that ladder, so to speak, and medical office being examples, an office, you can't do retail there.
Okay, so
So
I'm
if they
kind of-
had retail previously, perhaps then that would be an option that they could go back and prove that, show that they had a retail use. They had stepped down that ladder, so to speak, and then didn't want to go back. The intent was where things have been done before, to try to go back to those.
And I think that was a very important point that's kind of getting missed in here. Maybe the public doesn't recognize it, is we're not, in this case, we're not extending the use of what that property can do, but it's something that was used in that property in the past. It's just opening it up. So it is a consequence is giving the list of the people on here, as you said, as non-descriptive as it is, it's allowing them an option to be able to maybe do more than they can do now.
And I understand that. It's just that I haven't had time to go through this list and look up what all these addresses are and what that means. I feel before I could vote, I would need to have the opportunity to do that so that I would be able to say to Jason, well, what about 100 Gulf Beach Road? I don't even know what's there. Well, what am I doing to the people that live on 100 Gulf Beach Road? It's not all Estero Boulevard addresses here.
Mr. Attorney, do you see an avenue for us to drive down to satisfy both of these concerns?
I think that there's really two alternatives here. One is to revise the ordinance as proposed to make language that's been proposed somewhat to the specific parcel of land that's been the impetus for this change. Alternatively, you continue it to the next meeting, date and time certain, so we don't have to re-advertise, to allow staff and the council to take a closer look at that list and get each one of you a better understanding as to how this regulation, if we don't change it, will impact those 12 or 15 so properties.
Okay. So that's the question then before us, the council. We want to try to give these folks some satisfaction today, or do we want to postpone this to the next meeting and do it as a whole group?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would be in favor of moving forward with this simply because I think it's going to give some of these properties potentially some more uses that they didn't know that they have. It could potentially open up some of the things like the medical center that's sitting there that's empty, that can only be used currently as a medical center. It would allow people that may be looking at purchasing it and bringing it up to a nicer place for whatever. And please, Jason, correct me if I'm saying something that isn't correct. This would potentially allow someone that's looking at that property to be able to do something that was done there before. So I don't want it to seem like we're doing something specifically for this one property. People on this list could potentially benefit, but we're not going to hinder what they're doing now, correct?
Correct. I mean, the point is if they've done that use before, that in general impact had already been experienced, I guess. And so if they had done it before and it was done legitimately, then you can prove that through some kind of county back to that use. They still have to comply with other regulations, right? So you still have to comply with parking. You still have, the parking has changed. Since then, they still have to comply with today's parking. Traffic, that kind of, those types of things, and safety issues related to access. Those things still need to be looked at. Go ahead and do it. So there's some planning and backup for that.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Allers, you'd like to continue with this hearing today on this
Yes, I would.
ordinance and dispatch with this separately and then address the other ones at another date?
And it's my understanding that it's being looked at now already through the revisions that our consultant is working on, correct? It's looking at addressing some of these issues that we're talking about bringing back and discussing before they give us recommendations.
Last time he was here, he specifically mentioned the boulevard category, and trying to figure out what does it mean. And part of that is also because in the last application you had that was rezoned to commercial is you're butting up against the max commercial allowed within the boulevard category. Oh, it's time to figure out, is that the max? What types of uses? Is it serving the population nearby for the 5-minute drive versus off island stuff? And so that's what he mentioned, and he wants to come back with that. And
I feel like we're getting exactly what everybody's kind of talking about. We're getting another bite at the apple, if you will, on what Councilor Veach had brought up. But we're also moving forward with something that can be handled today.
All right, Councilman. Can you put that in the form of a motion and we'll get off the dime here?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to hear from Ms. Grady on,
We haven't,
This is the whether we're going to proceed with the rest of this hearing today.
guess I'm not following where you're going, but I'll,
Well,
One thing I'd really point out here is, not our job as town council really to make sure that they can take a path, or shorter path to get something they want to do with this property. I mean, it's our job is dealing with the comp plan and the LDC and making sure that those are upheld. So I think the idea of really, I'm not particularly comfortable with doing something for one property. And there is a path that is outlined in rules that allow them to do that, but as I've expressed, it takes them more time and money to do it the way that it is allowed. I think the call for expediency for this particular applicant, I don't think that should dictate how we go about making an ordinance.
all right, you've made your point. Councilman has made his point. Time to decide which way we're going to go today. So, Councilman Allers, is that a motion that you want to make to proceed with this today?
I would, but if I could, I'd like to hear a little bit of clarification on what I originally talked about in letter E on page 30, as far as not being so vague. Where it's just adding a couple words here or there. Can we hear from Ms. Grady, Mr. Mayor?
Well, you know what? I just want to resolve this particular matter so we can move on. We're going to hear from Mrs. Grady here, coming right up here. If it'll satisfy you to get this thing going, okay, come on up, Mr. Grady, just for a moment, please, and answer the councilman's question. Is this out of order, sir?
No, there's not a motion on the table as of yet.
It's not.
So what I would do is just open up the public hearing portion, then you can close it and you can discuss it and decide if you wish.
Oh, okay, you want to do it that way too?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think it'd be cleaner.
all right. Mrs. Grady, I think we're going to open it up to public first and then have you. Have
Okay,
you
all
comment.
right. For the record, my name is Beverly
not.
Grady with Redstone Andrews, representing Mr. Himmelstein related to 2815, which is one of the parcels affected by this ordinance. And I want to say good morning, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and congratulations to both the mayor and vice mayor. I want to say thanks to the council and staff for the work that they have done on this ordinance. And since that time, my client has retained Kara Stewart. She's working on the permitting side of hopefully moving forward, because client met with staff in March of this year and then purchased in May, understanding that there was a revision coming to CB that would work. And he's always been clear to staff that his purpose is a sale of furniture and design services, including indoor, outdoor furniture. So I did send each of you a letter. I filed it with the clerk and had put a square footage number in there that we were looking as to the limit on outdoor display for sale of furniture, and then have read the staff limitation, which is this outdoor display is for sale of outdoor furniture may be located in the area previously utilized as drive-through. Parking spaces may not be used for outdoor display. And Ms. Stewart has done a calculation that's approximately 1,482 square feet. And if you put that number in, you don't have any problem with putting that number in if that's something you wanted to add as a limitation.
That include areas for people to drive to use those parking spaces or not?
I'm going to ask, she did the calculation, but you'll notice it's significantly smaller than the number I requested in the letter. Do you want to just respond how you calculate that?
Morning, Kara Stewart. The
Welcome back.
area, I'm sorry?
Welcome back.
Thank you. The area that Ms. Grady just identified, the 1,482 square feet, that is the area immediately underneath the existing structure. It is not taking into any other area that would be considered drive-through, because in drive-through, we have stacking requirements. So we're not impounding that area at all. We're not going to affect it. We will only be using the area directly under the roof, which is significantly less.
Roger, in the ordinance, would it be cleaner to use a square footage number, not to exceed however many square feet? So if any of these other businesses could potentially be affected by this, would have a guideline to go by?
Yes, you could say, under roof, 1,500 feet on the roof. Sort of put four corners on it. Exceed.
In fact, you could say it's located in the 1,500 square foot area previously used as drive-through. The only thing you had to add was the 1,500 square feet to the existing
I just want to
language.
be careful, if we're taking the branch of the road that's open to all CB properties, I want to make sure it's hard enough, so just under roof, 1,500 square feet. If the council decides to just focus in on this property alone, then we could tailor the wordsmith it a little deep, a little more fine.
So in response to, I've heard council members' questions with regard to the impacts of not this particular change on page 30, item E, but the other changes. So what you do have before you is an ordinance that has strike through and underlining. So it's up to you whether you make those changes to those other provisions. E is new language, it's all underlining. I mean, you have the option of just adopting, section D3 with just the new language on E that at least we have thoroughly reviewed and you know exactly what you're approving as to that. And then the other language can come up at a later date. I'm hearing that from some council members. I'm hearing from other council members that, staff recognized from the very beginning that this is step one and there are other steps to be taken. And what we're hopeful is council will proceed with step one, that your staff has been advising owners that they are working on this step and they were bringing a solution. And here is a solution. So we do request that you adopt today, to the extent you are comfortable with the change and have vetted it, at least those changes. I'm here for any other questions.
Any questions for Mrs. Grady?
Beverly, just, if I could just ask, on this specific, there's, an argument's been made that this specific property ought to go through the normal channels. Isn't this specific property in a unique situation that we have a vacant bank? The business model for a bank is changing demonstrably. A bank with a drive-in that had a lot of intensive use with people going through that drive-in, and now it's going to be a retail store. But under this sort of bizarro world in which we're living, we can't replace it with a bank. Therefore, it sits vacant. Doesn't that seem a little unusual? And that maybe that's why it would require specific action that affects this individual property?
I would agree with that and say that if you look at the history of that, it was always intended that council would at some time get to the CB district. And this is a prime example of your staff did work and has worked with us to come up with language that fixes this particular parcel. And they have other language that helps other parcels. But yes, you have a parcel. It's a relatively large parcel, more than sufficient parking, and a vacant building on it, and someone who's ready to make that a productive use to the citizens of the town of Fort Myers Beach.
Any other questions for Mrs. Grady? Okay, thank you, Beverly. Okay, we'll open it up to the public. Anyone here from the public that wishes to speak to this issue? Going once? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment and we'll bring it back to the council for discussion.
Mayor, I just had one question about the change to the wording. Maybe John, you can help out with this. Is it necessary to, in an effort to keep this as open but as closed as possible to the rest of the properties on this list, would the words under roof be necessary? I don't know these properties by address, so I don't know which one directly. I'm trying to make sure that what we do here allows for some more uses potentially for some of these vacant properties without being too restrictive. For instance, we'll just use because we've talked about it, the empty medical center down there. If that's one of these properties, if they don't have an under roof space, this limit them. If I'm making sense, I'm trying to.
Yeah, I think that the problem may be in the second sentence of subsection E, where it says outdoor display may be located in the area previously utilized as drive-through. The question, I think, is where do you want to allow outdoor storage? So in the context of the financial institution, this solution, in my opinion, is relatively easy. And saying instead of outdoor display may, it would read outdoor display shall be located in the area. Now you know it's only going to be in the drive-through in that area that arguably is under roof. The larger issue is then how do you wish to deal with subsection new D, existing area of outdoor display may be converted into another display. So it's just whatever's already there. So I think you've taken care of it by in the context of what you're trying to accomplish by specifically stating in subsection E that the only area that can be used for outdoor display is what used to previously be the drive-through area. That makes sense.
Seems to me like we're going through some pretty extraordinary bits of yoga here to come up with a way to turn this into like a pocket zoning, like going through a plan development without actually going through the plan development process. And the other thing is, I don't like the vice mayor said. I look at this list of properties. I have no idea what the history of any of these properties are and what the ramifications of actually letting them go to whatever the most intense use in their history is. I'm not very comfortable with this process the way it's going.
Just to add to the comment, I've continued to sit here and look things up. I found 2 of these addresses that appear to be private residences. I don't know if there was ever a restaurant there years and years ago. Do their neighbors now want us to allow to go back to a restaurant where a house would be? has been, that they've thought of as a house all these years. Again, I don't want to slow down the process, and this is where I do disagree with Bill. I'd like to fix it for this particular person because they've relied on us. That's the difference. I don't believe in doing things for individual businesses one at a time generally, unless it's a variance as is appropriately filed. But these guys have been relying on us, but I just don't want to pass the ordinance that applies to all these addresses when we haven't had a chance to look up what they are and what their past uses have.
It'd be okay. Could we maybe, like John said, go to a date certain on this? So give more time to go through this list and see what we asked for originally, what businesses were in these and what the effect would be?
I don't, you know,
I ask you again, Mr. Attorney. We cure the problems that they have today on that specific property without affecting all of the rest of these.
I would defer to staff, at least initially, and I'm not trying to punt here, is, you know, the question at the top of my head is, any of these properties have a bank? If not, E is really only going to affect this particular parcel of land. I
that's
don't know if
E.
they,
What I'm saying is if we pass this ordinance today, we have affected all of these properties, John.
that is correct. That is correct, but if you're trying to accommodate this particular piece of property, E is fashioned just for this. The other thing to do is, revert back to how the code was, so you know, it would be, where the strikeout is on A, page 29, it would revert back to what it was before. The same for B and C. E would now be, B would now become D again, and then you would strike out C and D, and E would become C.
What you're saying then, John, is to go back to the old ordinance, the only change would be
Addition of E.
clarify that a financial institution with drive-through would be considered small retail. Other
That's
than that,
correct.
it's exactly the same as it was before, no ramification in this list. And then I think we owe it to people to go through and revisit the CB zoning district with some vision in place and make a permanent solution.
That would accomplish the goal of providing relief to the property owner while not affecting anyone else until you have an opportunity to analyze the issue with more information.
I think that sounds like a fair compromise. I just wanted to
There
check
it
with
is.
Miss Grady if that accomplishes her purpose today. Okay, very good.
I'd be in favor of doing it that way, then revisiting this. I mean, just have staff immediately put it back on the agenda with more background on these properties.
Well, it was a long way to get there, but we got there. Okay. All right,
We need a motion to,
yes.
I would make a motion that, quite how to word this, that we strike all the modifications from this change of the ordinance, except for what is on the ordinance as 3E, the conversion of existing space previously used as a financial institution with drive-through to small retail store with outdoor display.
With what my understanding is that the other in 34702, which are more Scrivener's corrections, substantive, as well as on page 31, the underline, the correct section that's cited there.
Is it better, John, should we just postpone this hearing and then come back to it, give staff a chance to actually
You
draft
can
it
table this and we can redraft it real quick.
during this meeting?
Right.
I'm comfortable with the town attorney taking the lead and fixing it the way we intend. We're just basically yielding to the town attorney to make the
I think
appropriate.
you
Yeah,
covered it, Bill.
everything would,
You covered it.
And he's also wanting some Scrivener changes, and
Oh.
then we'd have to go through and say what those Scrivener changes are.
I would second your motion and with the intention of the town attorney addressing the concerns that you've raised in your motion.
As I understand the motion, on Exhibit A, page 29 of 219, Section 34701, with the changes would stay. Sections, I'm sorry, Sections 34702A, B, and C would stay the same. Section D3, A, B, C, D would revert back to their previous language. E and D would be eliminated, and what is now the new E would be renumbered, would be I believe C, with the change, outdoor display shall be located in the area previously utilized as a drive-through. Parking spaces may not be used for outdoor display. And then on page 31, 34706, E would be left, as well as would be 34707 on page 32.
Okay, I would restate my motion, respond with what Attorney Herron just said.
I would,
That was my question.
You're good.
1,500 feet on the roof? Limitation of 1,500 feet on the roof?
Because it's as on E, it's just the outdoor drive-through area. To this limitation on square footage.
My concern is that the definition of drive-through, is the drive-through just the place where you park, or is it the entire area over there that doesn't have parking? Is that considered the drive-through? Or I pull in off of Estero Boulevard.
It says
If you
parking
add those
spaces.
two, then it's
The whole thing says parking
closed,
space.
closed envelope.
It would seem to be clear to say the 1,500 feet. I agree with Dan that this isn't clear when you say the drive-through area, because it specifically excludes parking spaces, but it doesn't exclude other stuff. So why not be clear and say the 1,500?
Right?
What is the change being suggested then?
1,500 feet on the roof.
Okay,
Not to exceed 1,500 feet on the roof.
again, I'll clarify my motion, respond to the conversation.
and I will second the motion as amended, with also the proviso, as the vice mayor has asked, that we continue the discussion on these other properties to see if we can do some good things in this direction.
Very good. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? To require a roll call?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Allers.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Husefros.
Aye.
Mayor Murphy, aye. Councilman Arrow.
Aye.
Councilman Veach.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Our best to the property owner. Good luck with their project, Okay, let's take a 7-minute break and resume after a little. 0039. This is for 71 Chapel Street setback variance. And this is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach approving or denying variance 2021-0039 to allow a 10-foot reduction of the 25-foot setback, to allow a setback of 15 feet at 71 Chapel Street and providing for an effective date. Sir.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this item is a quasi-judicial item. So we need to swear in the witnesses, and then it would be appropriate for each of you to disclose any ex parte communications you may have had with regard to this item.
Anybody who's going to testify in this matter?
Tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. This has been sworn.
Okay, ex parte communications. Ken,
Just a drive-by.
Drive-by.
I think I did several months ago.
I may have had a conversation as a sidebar item, the applicant on this a month or two ago, phone conversation.
I watched the LPA meeting.
Right, there you have it. F.
Hi, Carl Benj, Community Development. We're here to talk about variance 2021-039, and that's to allow a principal structure to encroach 10 feet into the 25-foot setback. There was a bit of confusion in the LPA that we were talking about. And the confusion came what the encroachment and what the setback was. So the recommendation or the request from the applicant, well, let me move forward first. So the house was built in 1940 and recent permits in 2008. Applicants bought the property in 2014 into residential multifamily. Here we go. So the applicant's request is to have a 10-foot setback and a 15-foot encroachment, where our LPA and staff's recommendation is to have a 10-foot encroachment with a 15-foot setback. There's a little bit of confusion last time in LPA in the conversation, but this is what we're bringing forward.
Was that resolved with the LPA?
Yes, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
The recommendation is consistent with staff's recommendation.
Correct, yes. So here's the variance, it's a variance from table 34-3 of the LDC. The applicant is seeking a variance from the 25-foot setback. And here's their proposed plan. You can see that their proposed setback is 10 feet from the principal structure to Cottage Avenue. So on October 20th, the LPA voted 6-0 to approve with staff's conditions. Your staff's findings are on page 3 of the staff report, and recommendations found on page 4 of the staff report. Staff recommends approval with conditions of variance 2021-0039 for proposed new home to encroach the Cottage Road setback up to 10 feet. Any questions?
Questions for Carl?
Carl, to your knowledge, is the applicant supportive of the LPA's conditions?
Their request was to encroachment, and I'm sure they'll have something to say about that. So there is a bit difference.
On the map too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Put it on the map, so.
Yes. Building has the same.
Jason Green, Community Development. Just to answer that question, I talked with the applicant to make sure, because I thought after watching the meeting that there might have been some confusion, and it seems that we were on the same page. I think he was maybe a little bit confused, so I think it's important for him to discuss that, because that 10 and 15, I think in his mind got flipped around too. So yes, he did accept those conditions, but at the same time, I think he was 15-foot encroachment, not a 10-foot encroachment. Be fair to him.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the staff? Thank you. Anyone wish to speak for the applicant?
Ron Yankee, I'm the property owner, 71 Chapel. Totally confused on this. I didn't even get the staff report until that meeting. And when I said I would accept the conditions, I assumed that we were all talking, I was going to get the 10-foot setback, 15-foot encroachment. And the discussion was the overhangs, would they be in that? And I said I would be fine with, which would give me a 12-foot setback. as it stands, and then I was agreeable to the driveway and the extra buffer and the extra things. As it is right, I'm getting basically 8 feet. It still doesn't accomplish what I need at all. So I'm requiring, and the original structure right now is at a 10-foot setback. It doesn't impact anything in the neighborhood. It's not sticking out too far by any means into the road. And it would help the neighbor, my closest neighbors are in agreement with it. I have no problem with it. And so I'm looking for the 15-foot encroachment and 10-foot setback. And if that 15-foot is to the edge of the eve, that is fine with me. All the other conditions are fine with me.
Let me get this straight. Hold on a second. Let me get this straight. Staff just said that you were in agreement with what was going on. Now you're saying, you're telling us that you didn't understand what was going on? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think part of the LPA did either. It's a 25-foot side street setback. We've got a 10 and 15 number that's been thrown around. So no, I'm not in agreement at all. I'm here for a 15-foot encroachment, a 10-foot setback, as I proposed in the very beginning.
Okay.
When I said I was in agreement, I was in agreement to take the structure so nothing comes out past the 10 feet, including the eave, and put the extra buffer and take the driveway out, the other conditions.
I don't know.
Jason, is that not what we're looking at here? That's my understanding is the way I'm looking at it is eaves, everything, the furthest point of that structure that's being built can't be closer than 10 feet to the street.
The staff recommendation and what was voted on by the LPA was the 15 feet setback from the right of way. His requested 10 feet setback.
So let's just to be, just to be clear. For 25-foot area that we're talking about, we're recommending, and we believe the LPA approved, that he can encroach into that 25-foot area by 10 feet. He's asking to allow to encroach into it by 15 feet. That's the difference. Instead of doing the math of, substituting it away from the 25 feet, it's very easier. He said he can go 10 feet into it. He would like to go 15 feet into it.
Correct. So,
Alright, so
yeah,
just to be
it's,
clear.
we always try to use terminology of what the variance amount is. So that's why he's requesting a variance of 15 feet, and we were recommending approval of 10 feet.
And the existing structure that's there now is 10 feet away from the road.
Correct. And basically the reasoning behind the staff was looking at the street, the narrowness of the right of way. Other homes in the area have been set back further. I believe the ones to his west, there's a little bit of setback a little bit further than the 10 feet. So it was basically just trying to look at the street and the future development of that street.
What would be the width? Very hard for me to see. What would be the width of the new 30? If it goes to the 10 feet that's on this drawing, it'd be 32 feet. Without it, you'd go down to 27.
Okay.
Width of the home.
Width of the new home is at 32
With
feet,
no home would be 32 feet.
and that's if you get the 10
I
foot.
get my variance.
Otherwise,
But
it would go
that's not true. It would be 30 because you'd have a
That's the
2-foot overhang.
And I think that issue is what kind of confused some of the conversation, is how much of the overhang to allow, not to allow. That got discussed more, the 10 versus 15.
If I'm looking at this drawing, is the new proposed building increasing the side setbacks from what's currently there?
Oh, yes, yeah, I believe so. On the other side, the opposite of that street, yes.
Are you saying, Jason, that the LPA was confused or
No.
didn't get enough information? Or
No, I believe they settled on in my opinion, based on watching the video, is they settled on the 15, and we're really focused on the overhang issue, whether to allow the overhang or not.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know who can answer the question for me. On page 72, we have a diagram, but it doesn't match the requested diagram. I'm assuming this is the current,
That should be the
this
survey.
is what it looks
of the
like
current-
now?
Correct.
And it shows a much larger setback from Chapel Street than what they're requesting. It shows a huge driveway with 2 entrances.
Right, one of the conditions is remove the entrances and clean up the side of the street, the cottage side.
In doing that, they're making the house much bigger than it is. How many more square feet, sir, is your new house than your old house?
We don't have the final plans on it, but it would be brought forward. We're not asking for any different setback than a normal 25 foot
That's
in the
not my
front.
question. My question is, how much bigger is the house? It looks a lot bigger.
It would, well, the footprint of it, of the house, existing house is 32 by, I believe, or about 30,
32
it's
by
almost
48
square.
is what it's showing on your plans?
Yeah.
And your old house well, it's not a square. It's got a corner
Right.
out of it, so
There, you should have this, an
it's
existing and a
21 on one
proposed.
side and 32 on the other.
I mean, if it were a square, it's 24 by 32.
It's much smaller. So you're building a much bigger house.
To me like it's roughly twice the size. Now, is this going to
Yeah.
be 1 floor or 2 floors above the flood?
Floors.
2 floors. Existing house is 1 floor?
Yes. If I'm looking at the numbers correctly, I think to touch on what you were getting at, Madam Vice Mayor, on the side setbacks, the current setback, total setback, available space that's on the house now is 47 feet. With the proposed new, it's gonna go to 52 feet. The overall side setbacks are gonna increase, and the rear setback's gonna increase by a half a foot. So he's asking for a little bit more on the front end of it, but he's giving back more on the sides and the rear.
One side of it, he's not. He's there. This.
I'm talking about
If you're
total
looking at
overall.
page 72,
Right.
there's a huge setback from
30
Chapel Street.
It's 37 feet, and then if you add the 9.5 feet on the other side, you're at about 47 feet. Proposed is 52 feet of total side setback. So the total overall setback on the property is gonna increase, even though he's putting a bigger home.
I guess the point I'm trying to get to is that when we grant a variance, the idea is it's supposed to be de minimis. And if they had a house here before of this size, and I get it if people want to have a little bit bigger house, but I don't know that we need to give him the 10-foot setback, because that's not de minimis. There's notes in here that say it would be impossible to build a house 15 feet wide or whatever. I get that. But there was a house here before, which I assume was a livable property. So it seems to me like the recommendation of staff is not unreasonable when you're looking at a de minimis variance.
Any other questions of the applicant?
Mr. Yankee, could you just talk a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish and what the LPA has proposed would diminish what you're trying to accomplish? Give us a little background on what you're thinking about.
What I'm trying to do is build a new home. If the problem you have, the challenge you have with a 50-foot lot on a corner is the setbacks. It makes your home long and narrow. You end up building a bowling alley. Right now, the home is 32 foot wide. I'd like to do something similar to that. I've got no impact on the neighborhood. I've got a vacant lot that's going to be someday probably a planned unit development. I've got commercial. I own the other 2 properties around it. And then on Cottage, you have the houses on the beach, which all face the beach, their driveways are on Cottage. There's no real impact on my corner. And if you only grant me the 10-foot encroachment with including the eaves, it still puts me at a very narrow house. And that doesn't accomplish what I would like to do.
Thank you. Are you planning on enclosing the ground level?
Yes.
Now, The question is condition, well, both of you are acceptable or not, is it, would it be acceptable, I mean, to the council if we remove the vegetation barrier, or if he did not enclose the ground level to keep it more open?
Yeah, I don't know that there's really any view advantage with this particular property, but we can determine that.
Well, the idea is kind of, is forward leading, because we've talked about trying to have more open views and,
Right, I
putting
just don't
up an-
know that there's a view here to be, I mean, it would be more open, that's for sure, but I don't know, you'd just be looking through his house to see another house. Typically.
that's still air, that's still open, and
That's
I'm
true.
just thinking the idea of enclosing the bottom and then putting up vegetation on the road to block the view is really closing in a narrow street.
I'm not debating it, I'm just making a point, just people who may not be familiar with the area.
I'm still struggling with condition number 2. The way I read it, a portion of the home may encroach further than 10 feet into the cottage avenue setback. I first read that, I understand where the confusion comes in. Because when I first read that, and until you described it to me, I read it as a 10-foot setback from the street. The way it was worded, it led me to believe that he's doing exactly what he's got now. That makes sense. So I just had to read it again. I guess I don't like the way it's worded. Maybe my brain works a little bit different, but I see where your point is now. It's the 15 feet. I mean, I don't know. I'm the house that he's putting or he's proposing to put on there. It's not egregiously larger than what's already there based on the dimensions that I'm looking at. The front and rear footprint of it looks almost identical as far as what's there. It's very small to read, but the back of it's like 32 and a half feet. And the proposed rear on this one is 48, so it's 16 feet longer, but it's not any wider. 32 feet on the Apple Street side, and it's the box that he's proposing is 32 feet. He's not going tremendously larger, and he's centering the house on the lot, which opens that side setback on either side.
You know, Dan, I'm looking at this and I see, given, even if you give him credit for the little notch that's not there, both are 32 feet wide, but one is 32 and the other is 48. Plus it's going to be basically 3 floors. It's going to be a covered downstairs and then 2 floors. So he's looking at tripling his square footage. So it's not equivalent.
I'm just looking at the footprint, the actual footprint on the ground. I'm not going up is a whole nother discussion. I'm looking at the footprint on the ground.
It's going to be a tall
You can't
house.
just look at the footprint on the ground. If someone's going up and tripling their size, they don't need as much of a setback because they've got more room above.
Argument.
Counterpoint. Okay, any other questions for the applicant?
The reason I'm moving it forward is that it's gonna be a future pool, hopefully. But right now, the house is set farther back on the lot, existing cottage. I don't know if that makes a difference, but any other questions?
My job. Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. All right. We'll bring it back to the council for discussion. If he feels free to make a motion, go right ahead. Otherwise, we can,
Jason, will the 2 driveways go away then? Would it just be 1 entrance onto the parcel versus 2?
Correct. Yeah, the goal is to have the one driveway entrance on the street.
The one on Cottage would go away.
Look at your public, please.
Jason, the current resolution is drafted in compliance with the LPA recommendation and the staff recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, I would go ahead and move approval of resolution 2163.
Public.
okay.
I'm sorry, hold on. I got to get my notes here.
Yeah, well, hold on.
You want to do the,
We do need to open it up to a public hearing.
My apologies.
other
I thought
than-
you already
unless
done
the-
that.
The applicant's the only one who's going to,
I thought I had done that. Okay, we'll open up the public,
I'll withdraw my motion.
momentarily.
Yes.
Okay, is there anyone else from the public that wishes to address this? Hearing none, we'll close it. Madam Vice Chair. To you.
Yeah, I'm looking for the,
Last page, second to last bullet point.
okay.
Yeah. Legal.
Okay, I'm going to say, based on the information in the staff report and the testimony, that I find that the resolution meets the standards in our comprehensive plan and land development regulations. And therefore, I move approval of resolution number 2163
It's presented with the conditions.
as presented.
Is there a second?
It
It's
was
been-
easier.
Yeah. Moving seconded. Discussion.
Is this, I mean, is there any interest in trying to keep this more open? Is that, because I know that's, we've been talking about changing codes to keep things more open, and seems like it's a good opportunity to put that as a condition.
I don't see necessary to do that, but that's just my opinion.
This particular case, I don't know, concern, the view has been pretty much ruled out as to accomplishing, but you're concerned about the air movement, Bill? Is
I
that
think
the-
just the openness. This is going to be a big house, and this is one thing we've talked about that some members of council have talked about going forward. So if we're going to, in the future, consider to memorialize that rule in our codes, then it seems like we should also be willing to apply that as a condition to a new construction.
The problem with that, Bill, is I see that if you do that, then you would be saying, okay, then you get your 15 feet in exchange for leaving it more open. And then you don't have a de minimis variance anymore.
We can make any conditions we deem as appropriate.
I understand that, but variances have special rules about them, and one of them is it's supposed to be de minimis.
Right.
So
Just point of clarification, Counselor Veach, are you suggesting if they leave it open on the first floor that you'd be willing to give them what they're asking in terms of the setback?
No, I'm just looking at it as a potential, that
Addition.
an additional condition that was, not really talked about at all in the PA. That, keep it open downstairs to make it less obtrusive visually and to conform with what we're looking at with future standards. In exchange for the variance that was recommended, not an additional variance. And I'm just putting it out there for consideration. As a talking point.
Anybody have any interest in that? The vice mayors? Not hearing any, Bill. Particular case.
Don't hear any opposition or any,
Not much of anything. Yeah, sorry. But, okay, there's a motion. Second. Any further discussion? Any objection to the motion?
we have to,
Oh, roll call? You want a roll call for this, for resolution?
It's not required, it's a resolution, but
Well, then we won't.
oh,
So,
I thought because it was quasi judicial, you had to roll call.
resolution,
you,
can do it either way.
either way.
Okay, any objection to the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Right, move on to the administrative agenda. Item A is Resolution 2162. This is for Court Street, the name change. This is a resolution of the Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, supporting the residents of Court Street's request to change the street name to Flamingo Court, providing for an effective date. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-62.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
just to be clear, we're just supporting their efforts and we're not committing the financial or other resources.
That's my understanding.
That's correct.
It's your town manager.
Yes, I just want to, for the record, make it clear, one of the members of council asked if there would be any cost to the town, and the only cost would be 2 new signs if they're successful, which would be about $100.
Mr. Town Manager, it's somewhat of a non sequitur question, but In the original discussion on this issue, which I support, you mentioned the need for replacement of a sign that had been borrowed or stolen, always like to think borrowed, of the street sign Easy Street and Lazy Way over there by the laundromat. Something that we can take a look at?
Yes, these, all our signs, because of the nature of the naming of our streets, are all custom made. So we usually don't put an order for one, we usually put an order for a couple at the same time, but
That's in the batch then?
it's in the batch.
Great, thank you.
Bulk order those particular signs?
You might want
For
to.
tho- for that particular one, we should order a couple of them, because I have,
Okay, any objection, resolution, the motion? Hearing none, the resolution and the motion carries unanimously. The next item is the Lee County Sheriff's Office extra duty traffic details. This is to approve Lee County Sheriff's Office extra duty traffic detail contracts for fiscal year 2021, 2022 in the amount of $70,580. And this is to authorize the town manager to execute contract documents as approved in our 2022 budget. There a motion to authorize the manager to execute these contract documents?
I guess before I make a motion, we were provided with some extra documents outside of our, notebook.
Right.
Did you want to make any comment on those?
yeah, so, so to be clear, this is for the traffic detail and not the increased full presence during holiday peak periods. That's a separate issue. Just to be clear about that. This is on the agenda because the dollar amount exceeds my spending authority, so that's point 2. Point 3 is we're trying to anticipate not only the seasonal part of the traffic detail, but the other holiday portion of the traffic detail, which is why you were provided an additional piece of paper today morning. And last but not least, because the new signal at Old St. Carlos and Fifth Street is now operational, we only included the traffic detail there for Thanksgiving holiday and the Christmas holiday. And that was just help people with the adjustment of the new signal. And we suspect by once it's been up and operating for 60 days or so, people will be familiar with the automated function and a person won't be needed there. And I will tell you, I did go by there Sunday at noon to kind of see it myself. And to my surprise, the public was very respectful of the walk, don't walk symbol.
You know, I would, since we do have that signal in place, I would recommend that we don't include someone being a sheriff's office, sit there and police a pedestrian cross light. Seems to me maybe there's better use of the sheriff than as his purpose. It's the reason why we put that light there was to control pedestrians and not have to have.
Maybe I misunderstood. Didn't Roger say that was just a temporary thing for how people get used to it?
That's the thing. We have a very transient population. I don't think, you know, getting people used to it is really a reason to do.
I wish it was so simple where red and green meant the same thing all over the United States of America. You know, I don't know why they come here and expect to behave differently for a traffic light.
That means go faster.
They do it at home. But,
When you said temporary, Roger, how long?
Well, we were doing it for the holiday, Thanksgiving, and basically the 2 weeks of Christmas through New Year's. Again, this item was created before I personally went out there to look at it. So I don't know if my experience when I went and looked at it Sunday at noon was illustrative of how it is all the time. I was very much pleased to see onto the public to in terms of conformity.
If I may, I also went there this weekend and witnessed it. And I think it is warranted to have them there. I don't know if you, my fellow counselors have had a chance to go check it out yet, but there's a very unique thing there that I've never seen in the hundreds of thousands of miles I've logged in a vehicle. I've never seen a crosswalk that was diagonal, corner to another. This has two of them. See how that could be very confusing to some people, knowing that they can now go from corner to corner. Usually you go from this side to that side and then that side to that side. This one doesn't. This has two extra crosswalks, what we had before.
Noticed that. I went through it this weekend. I did not notice that.
Yeah, so I could tell you,
Probably
my
what-
experience was a little bit different than the town managers with people crossing there. There was a lot of confusion.
I share Counselor Aller's concerns. I was there couple days before that, and folks seemed confused, at least when I was there. So I think any opportunity to get some law enforcement down there, given the traffic challenges that we've got, something that I'm sympathetic to.
And I, just for the record, I've seen that kind of situation kind of lay out in a number of places, usually in very busy intersections. They'll just close the entire street and then just flood into the middle of the intersection to get across.
Well, I've seen that, for special events, fairs, things like that, but I've never actually seen a crosswalk painted on the ground diagonally. For me.
And I've seen them, just the whole intersection is.
All right, we've drifted a little bit. The motion was to approve authorize the town manager
I
to
don't-
execute the
I
document.
don't think we made a motion. I asked if he wanted to talk first. And
Oh, I thought there was. I'm sorry. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the town manager to move forward with the contract with the Lee County Sheriff's Department.
Very good.
I'll second.
Move and second it. Further discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is Resolution 21, Community Aesthetic Feature Agreement with FDOT. This is to adopt Resolution 21-61, Community Aesthetic Feature Agreement, the Town Entrance Sign. FDOT for the welcome sign, and allowing for all associated documents to be executed by the town mayor and/or town manager or his designee. Is there a motion to approve the resolution, to adopt the resolution?
Move to approve Resolution 2161.
Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Discussion, it's moved and second, discuss.
Well, I've been made aware that the lighting on the sign as proposed violates our ordinances, lighting ordinances.
I don't think this has to do with the lighting. This is just our agreement with FDOT to put it there. We can do whatever we want to with the lighting.
Right, so, right, this is for the dirt itself.
Yeah.
Councilor Veach's point is to relook at the uplighting so that you could see the sign at night. It was provided to you in a diagram at your previous meeting. And we could talk about that as separate from.
As I understand, the resolution doesn't
That's correct. This is
bind us
just
to the
dirt.
type of lighting. This is just, like you said, for the dirt.
That'll be discussed in a minute. Okay,
Is this for just the one on the north side of the bridge? Or
Yes, because the other one's is on Lee County right away, on FDOT's right away.
our ordinance is not to that down the road, but would our ordinance even have any authority in this case? Because it's not our property? If you're talking about the lighting moving forward.
Well, that's Scout's policy of the council, how and if you want it lit. We can discuss that at any time. I mean, to, having it on or not having it on, or having down lighting or up lighting or no lighting or whatever, but this is purely for the dirt.
okay. It's been moved and seconded. It's been discussed. Any objection to the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is D, Resolution 21-59, Parking Shade Structure. This is to approve Resolution 21-59 to allocate and appropriate funds for the purchase of a parking shade structure and accessory items for Fort Myers Beach Elementary parking lot pursuant to the town's agreement with the Lee County School Board in the amount of $82,942 as budgeted in our 2022 budget, piggybacking Lee County School District Contract P177288LN Walkway covers contract number. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-59.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is STA number 11, CEI and Construction Administration. This is for Bayside Park. Approve supplemental task authorization number 11 with DRMP Inc. for construction inspection services and construction to Bayside Park, seat amount of $42,500, and authorize the town manager to execute the contract documents. Is there a motion to approve this supplemental authorization?
So moved.
Moved.
Second for discussion.
It's been moved and seconded for discussion. Discuss.
Just a quick question for Roger. This 42,500, this was included in the last, the final number that we approved for the Bayside
No, this
project.
is above,
in
this
addition
is
to.
above and beyond that.
Okay.
Just to be clear, and, reason is the word is not to exceed because we're not really certain how much this we will need. But at times the designer and slash engineer will have to sign off on certain documents associated with the installation, poles and other things, and we don't have the technical expertise on staff.
Other questions? Any other discussion? Any objection to the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is lighting purchase. This is for Bayside Park. This is to approve, allocate, and appropriate funds in the fiscal year 2022 budget, the purchase of lights and accessory items for Bayside Park in the amount of $112,771.25, waiving the procurement policy as these lights are manufactured by a sole source, ESCO Lighting. Is there a motion to approve and allocate the appropriate funds? I'll move it for discussion. Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Move and second it. Vice Mayor.
I just assumed there was some kind of presentation that went with this.
So the Madam Mayor, and Madam Vice Mayor, and members of council, so this is the lighting design that was shown to you by the design consultant for Times Square, Bayside Park, and actually we'll be using these fixtures as well up and down Old St. Carlos Boulevard to try to connect that whole corridor as sort of one common look and feel. So, in accordance with that design, these are the fixtures that were selected or recommended by the consultant. So now, because of lead times for purchasing of items, that's why this item is before you. If you want to revisit the design and the aesthetics of the lights and other technical features of the lights, we can do, we could defer this item and do that, but suppose that since you reviewed the design of the lighting systems for these projects, that we're ready to go and buy these lights.
With the design, you said the common look and feel of the different projects we have going on. Do these designs conform to our lighting ordinance? At a condition of these designs?
Well, we will confirm that before we go forward with the purchase, I will tell you that.
Roger, couple quick questions on these fixtures, just kind of go through it for the public's benefit if they don't know exactly what they are. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. The first one is specifically an uplight for landscape lighting, things like that. The ETC 130-GB CC LED, which is a color changing light. Correct, it's a red, green, blue
Yes.
light.
Correct. You have to come up here,
yeah.
please.
Come to the mic.
I should have said
Boy.
we have the firm who's supplying the lighting here to answer questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to get some more clarifications.
Sir.
I understand the product. I understand looking it up. I've worked with it several times. But just for the public's benefit, the first one is that uplight that I described, correct? That would go flush mount into a concrete.
You're gonna have to identify yourself again.
Bill Snyder, Sesco Lighting.
And thanks for being patient, Bill, waiting through this. Sorry we had to wake you up, but.
Very enlightening to be part of it.
The second one, the FLC 131, that looks to me like it's going to be more of like a tree light or something that sticks out of the ground, but very minimal. Also a red, green, blue, white color changing fixture.
That's correct.
The ones I had questions about specifically, and then the next one is, it looks like it's going to be at the tape light for underneath the bench seating,
That's exactly correct.
which is also color changing.
The idea was to get all the RGB to work together.
The ones I got a couple questions on that may be a little confused, or I'm a little confused on. The first one, the Luso M-PT, that looks like that's the fixture head that would go on top of the poles.
That's correct.
It looks like it's very directional.
It's cut off.
It's cut off, so it basically just shoots straight down, correct?
Correct.
And it shows that it is 0 to 10 volt and it's dimmable.
That is correct.
So is this all, in the controls, is this all going to be centrally located from the Bayside Park area, or will it be controlled from
I believe
within
there's,
Town Hall?
no, it's a control cabinet there on site, and it's supposedly being upgraded. But I believe there is BACnet available that can be controlled through this location. Just dial into it.
It's, you essentially just go in through the programmer, program a scene or a light show, if you will, and let it do its thing. It runs
Absolutely.
through an astronomical clock and comes on at certain times, turns off at certain times.
Sure.
Okay. Then obviously the pole, it looks like that was selected as a 10-foot pole.
Correct.
How much higher than the pole will the fixture itself?
No more than 30 inches.
Okay.
About 12 foot.
12 foot to the top of the fixture.
Correct.
Okay. And the last question I have is, let me find it here. I was unsure what these were going to be used for, the final ones that look like they're the, sorry, I can't find the page. They're the, like 3 or 4 foot after the controller here. I couldn't, they're the hang, they look like they hang, they're hanging lights.
There used to be a structure there. I'm not sure that that's still there or not. I know that the job has gone through some revisions. Those were just some lights for the structures. I believe they're 4 foot, what I would call in the business. Environment out of the light. At the top of my cut sheet, in the right-hand corner, there's a type. Direct me to what type you were.
Yeah, it's the Illumina BS 100 LED.
Correct, yeah, so those are just vapor looms, and they were probably mounted in the bottom of some sort of band shell or structure.
They're just specific lighting for the, in this case, there'll be specific lighting for the band shell.
Correct.
Know how many of them would be going there? Seven of them? It looks like it's going to have a diffuser on it.
Yes.
Okay, those are the only questions. I just wanted to kind of clarify for the public what they were.
I just want to be clear, Council Ehlers, I'm not certain that it's exclusive to the bench show. We have some other types of shade structures or whatever that, and some of these might be used there. I don't know that for a fact. It's exclusively a bench show.
I just was unsure what that specific
They're
light was going to be used
basically
for.
downlighting from anything something where we have a cover.
Go ahead.
You were present during Ms. Johnson's comments during public comment. Do you have any concerns about her comments? Do you believe that you would be in compliance with what she's concerned about?
I pretty much spend my days fine with a lot of what she said off. It's I love to have people that are aware of what we do. I'm not personally aware of all your different ordinances, but we always try to environmentally sensitive, dark sky compliant, no lead or anything toxic to the environment. And we run a lot of photometrics and other things to make sure that we're providing safe lighting levels, minimize, if not, try to any litigious issue lighting levels.
Do you have an opportunity this morning to have a conversation with her about some of those concerns?
We did. We actually talked a little bit about the Estero Boulevard project as well. We had been in contact with you guys.
To miss an opportunity.
We're just here to try to service you guys any way that you need to and comply with the community requests.
And I don't, believe that he's necessarily needs to be familiar with our town codes. He's given a design, an order, and he implements that order. So it's really a designer in the town to make sure that this complies with our
I
town.
work through your consultants.
Right, so just so everyone understands, this project is no different than any other project. So there goes through our building permitting process, or the lighting and every other aspect of the building code that we would normally look at. If we're building this as an individual, as a company, is going to be looked at exactly the same way. If there's a comment that something does not meet the code, it'll be rejected or a condition will be applied.
And just, I know that the designs and this is our first project. Of all the big three that are coming in place, this is the first one, and we're trying to get a uniform look and feel. But in our code, there are, uplights are prohibited. It says lights that are aimed upwards need to be aimed and shielded so they only illuminate a target, like a building or something. Lights that shine up are specifically not in our code.
Right, so we don't believe that these lights are all designated to light something. They're not just shooting straight up into the sky for no reason whatsoever, as far as I know, but we will confirm that as part of the plans review.
It's my involvement. I can tell you that these are all meant to light something. They're not going up into the air. In fact, the light really wouldn't do anything unless it hits a surface.
Quick, Paul Benji with DRMP. So this project has already gone through code review, has a development order already assigned to it, and all of your staff has already looked at it and approved it to be compliant with the town codes. All uplights and lights will be targeted at a shade sail or a tree or some other object. Also, the light heads themselves are dual board, and what that means is we can put it onto turtle-friendly lighting, the amber-colored lighting in turtle season, and then outside of turtle season, we can use the full gamut of the RGBs. Right now, the town is going into one of the heads and changing light bulbs, and so instead of having the town staff do that, we can do it with a control from a computer. So it's easier for the staff to control. It's no different than what we're doing right now in terms of this town being responsible to make sure that those lights are appropriate for the season.
I think it's important that the color changing lights, if you've had a chance to see them work in areas like this on parks and buildings, and it really drastically changes the look of that area, even though you're not physically changing the look of the area, just by changing some colors makes it look like a completely different space. So I was glad to see that that's what we're going with there.
Just as an aside, not that you all in the not too distant past received email from some of the businesses regarding the inadequate lighting in that general area. So we're trying to be cognizant of that as we.
And I think, Roger, you said it best early on, assuming it's compliant with our ordinance, which is important. This concept of tying Bay Oaks in with the rest of that street and with Times Square and bringing them together, I think is really important. And I think you've captured that in your proposal, again, assuming it meets the standards of our ordinance. But I think the concept of having Bayside Park be so off from the rest of it gives a continuity to our whole renaissance that I think is really helpful.
Hopefully we'll create a condition where people will be encouraged to walk from Bayside Park to Times Square and back and forth.
Exactly.
And
I think that's
shops
really
and
important.
businesses in between.
Very important.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for coming
May I
up.
make one comment?
Sure.
Just to save money and to let you know, in Times Square, we have 3 25-foot poles that are into the design that are wind loaded. They'll have some gobo projectors on them to put the Fort Myers Beach down. But I was thinking that would be perfect locations for them to mount the cameras on. No additional cost.
That's exactly what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Great shirt, by the way. You're welcome down here with that shirt. Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is final public comment. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to finally comment? We're all heading for the doors. Okay, I guess not.
Thanks for coming.
Me? Okay, yeah.
addressing appropriately.
Town managers items?
No, sir, you took care of that when you moved up the Mistletoe Market.
That was it. Okay. Town attorney?
Just two items. The holiday that just passed, as a son, grandson, and brother of a veteran, I just want to salute all the veterans out there. Second, just to wish each and every one of you, as well as the public, a happy Thanksgiving.
Back at you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. We'll move on to council members' items and reports. Looks like we have this matter before us, representation on town advisory committees. I don't know how you all feel about it, but rather than getting into a whole big discussion about this, if there's anybody that doesn't wish to continue serving on the committees that they're on now, just your thoughts be known, and or else we could just roll over what we have.
I'm happy with my current assignments.
I'm as well.
Fine too.
Everybody okay? Bill? Okay. Thank you. All right, and then the next one is the
Just as a message, a note, it would be interesting to know how involved the council members are with the committees. 'Cause in my time with, on MRF, there were some, because of direction from the council in general, some counselors came to occasional meetings, some came to, there are other times when counselors came to every meeting and were very active in them. And honestly, I would be interested to know how active the members here are in their committees.
I'll speak for myself. I go to the audit committee and go to every one of their meetings. Don't meet, well, they meet monthly, and I sit right over there where the clerk is sitting, and if they wish a clarification or something, or wish my input, they'll ask me. Otherwise, I don't offer anything. Very capable people, and they don't need my introduction if not. So that's my experience.
I attend almost all the meetings of my committees. I will say that I do occasionally now miss a TDC meeting because I'm not the official representative anymore because we alternate with Sanibel, but I still attend when there's anything of interest on the agenda, or if Allison or Chelsea would like me to be there for support for the town.
I have go to all the meetings, and they've been very kind to involve me in their issues and history, and it's been a great experience.
I attend as many as I can. I do not make all of them all the time, but I do watch every one of them, and I do have communications with the chairs of the meetings. If there's any questions that they have for me or I have for them, if I can't attend the meeting.
Good. And I'll pose the same question for B, the council representation on outside committees. If there's anybody that unhappy with their assignment or anything that they have presently, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Mayor,
Yes.
there's two on the outside committees that was inadvertently left off, the Resiliency Council, Southwest Florida Resiliency Council, and Estero Bay Agency on Bay Management, both of them council member of each. Is the liaison for?
And I'm also the liaison for the Charlotte Harbor.
So you are liaison for the Estero Bay Management?
Yes. And for CHENIP and for this Resiliency Council.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Which has turned out to be a bit of a political hot potato.
Wish to continue or not?
I'm okay. I think, one seems to be sunsetting, one is pretty active, and then one is starting up. So they're all in different phases, and none of them have really caused an inordinate amount of effort. And I'm finding potential ways to some funding and some work done on the behalf of the town, some projects of the town.
Anyone else change or anything? If not, we'll just we'll continue the way we are. Okay. All right. Yes, sir.
Just for the record, 2 of the 3 ground cover plants were brought to the chambers just so the council can see them. Our intent would be to use a mixture of them, just so there's some variety, where appropriate, unless the council has any other specific direction. So I
This
just
is
wanted to
for,
look
this is for Estero Boulevard.
Right, for the, where we're not putting more enhanced landscaping, but it's just ground cover. Would be, these are the two of the, we started perennial peanut, and I believe Council Beach suggested two other plants. One of them we were able to get, obtain a sample of.
That's a sunshine mimosa, and then there's another one, the frog fruit.
So we wanted you to see them, so, you know, to the extent that you may have a concern, if were not familiar with them, you knew what they look like. We'll proceed, as the council already approved the contract, placing 3 species selected out town, trying to have some variety.
Just a note too, if you go to the demonstration project by the whale, by Premium Palermo, you can see the sunshine mimosa and the frog fruit. And the sunshine mimosa there is spreading very well and very thickly. It just started with a few clumps.
Either one of these flower?
Yes. The frog fruit flowers but does not seed in our environment. And they're looking at as potentially being considered an invasive because of the ground spread. The frog fruit does, and the sunshine mimosa has like a little firework looking flower.
Ball,
It's a very attractive little flower.
all around the library, the purple puffballs.
Now, I'll also tell you that I have emailed the designers, the landscape for the patch when you come over the bridge, because there we have 0.1 acres of turf that they want to put in, and we were responsible of going 0.1 acres. It just seems like, you know, for some place that we don't expect people to be picnicking and playing on, it seems like a ground cover would be a more economically efficient and responsible choice, as opposed to turf. Grass that has to be mowed regularly and watered and whatever.
Someone with no green thumb, you mentioned spreading. How often do these have to be maintained? My question is, when they spread, what do you mean by spread? Will they spread across the sidewalk like a vine, or will they spread over the curb like a vine, or do they have to be maintained at the edges with a weed whip, or how do they?
No, I think they're all a little different. I think that with the invasive nature of the frog fruit, it just spreads in continuous ground. If it doesn't seed, then it would have a hard time jumping over a barrier like a sidewalk. And like any ground cover, they will cover some aspects of the barriers. I don't think it's, you know.
So the council, is that the reason I believe the council wanted us to consider this is the difference between us mowing 18 times a year and mowing once a year.
No, I get it. I'm just,
So I
Again,
think
I know
that's
nothing
why,
about
and of
plants.
course, the friendliness, for friendliness
You're
of
a
it.
lighting guy.
I'm just concerned that they're gonna grow through the cracks of the sidewalks, and then it's, you know, gonna be
I won't-
overgrown.
no,
Considering
it
how many
won't-
bikes we have on the sidewalks, I doubt they're
I
they're
hope
gonna
not,
grow
yeah,
on the
it's-
sidewalk.
And Mr. Mayor, I
Grow
thought
typical
someone might
of
ask
stuff.
under council comments about the status of the audiovisual upgrade. I believe we're down to waiting for one last piece of equipment to come in.
Waiting for 2 main controllers, and we are hoping December.
Oh, and everything we need to install.
December for receiving the parts or to completion?
Hopefully receiving parts.
Okay, it's a step in the right.
December of 2021.
Yes.
Good. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Are we adjourned?
What, we haven't done individual council member items?
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor. You're absolutely right. We just covered the big items. Okay, individual items. We'll start with you, Councilman Allers.
So I've had some people concerned or not concerned or ask questions about potentially getting bike racks at the base of the bridge. I know I noticed this weekend when I was going over the bridge, there must have been 50 to 100 bikes chained to the poles just at the base of the bridge there. And then they were chaining to other bikes and they were chaining. I'm glad to see people are riding their bikes, but they're parking them over the bridge and then walking over the bridge. We don't have any place for them to, you know, we're encouraging them to not take their cars over the bridge, but we're not giving them a place to park their bikes. I don't know if there's a spot down there in the town-owned right away where we can maybe get some bike rack down there of some sort so people can come over the bridge and park their bikes safely and not have to worry about leaving them locked up over the bridge.
Take a look at it.
Or if there's something we could do even on that side of the bridge to give them a place. I know it's not our area, but if we can discuss it with them to have a place for them to park their bikes and not chain them to the bridge.
We'll take a
Sounds
look
to
at
me
it.
like they don't want to ride them over the bridge. They wanna
Well,
walk.
well,
But,
either way. And the other thing is I've had several people over the last couple of weeks contact me with concerns over some of the actions that are being taken by the the Key Estero parking lot area. John, maybe you can touch on this. Probably been 5 or 6 over the last couple of weeks that have had some altercations at that area where police have sometimes been involved, sometimes they have not. Some business owners actually have had some issues. I know, could you give us an update as to where that is as far as the compliance with the parking there?
You all touched upon this very briefly at the end of the last meeting, and I have spoken with Ms. Saunders to bring to you, and hopefully next meeting, staff a list of, I would say, the main culprits and of violating the town code that have accrued very large fines as a result. And believe me, Key Estero is at the top, one of the, at the top of that list. The prior commission denied their request to continue to legally have that parking. And the reason why was because Mr. Nacarado, the property owner, was unwilling to limit number of parking spaces that were available to him for that special exception. He wanted to use the entire parking lot as a parking lot for commercial purposes, as opposed to his excess parking. And you know, he is still in non-compliance with the town code as it relates to the operation of an illegal parking lot in that location.
Was he accruing fines then daily?
Yes, sir.
Some of the residents that live in the towers just to the north have made some comments that the post office weekends is being used and rented out. Is that something that the government can get involved with as far as, I mean, it's a federal property. I would assume that something that they can do, you know, because some of the, it's concerning to me that some of the things that I'm hearing from the businesses in that area and the people that park in that area, how they're being confronted and talked to. It's not something that I think the town wants to have as a, you know, welcome to our island. Here's the first thing you're going to get accosted with. I don't know if there's anything that the town can do, whether it be through nuisance abatement board or anything along those lines, that people can have something that they can formally go through to hopefully curb some of the things that are happening there.
To the question of the jurisdiction of the nuisance abatement board, unfortunately, no, it's very limited. It has to be some criminal conduct. As to the issue of is the post office, the federal government, aware of the fact that their property is being appropriated for commercial use over on the weekends? I'm not aware of that. I've heard that that does happen, and I think that from staff perspective, we can reach out to the post office, to post whatever the head of that post office is, to inform them of that. And you know, as a private property owner, even though it is a government agency, it's up to them to decide what, if any, action they want to take to stop that. Last but not least, as to the interaction of the general public with Mr. Nacarado and anyone of his staff, I think that that's a continuing problem, as evidenced by his conduct both before the special magistrate and then the LPA and the town council, the various hearings that we've had with regard to that piece of property. Very confrontational.
So essentially, there's nothing that we can do.
Well, as we bring forward the list, if it is the desire of this council, you can direct staff, including myself, to initiate enforcement action in the way of court action to enforce the code, the special magistrate's order through injunctive relief, or to foreclose on the lien. And we will be bringing that information and those options available to you, hopefully in the very near future. And again, Mr. Nacarado's property will be at the top of that, one of the properties at the top of that list.
And just to be clear, Councilman, when I was coming up with the idea of bringing this forward, is to have a look at what's going on with these accruing fines, that we wasn't specifically targeting him. Anybody who's in a similar circumstance that we just may not know about.
I just, in this case, I was specifically asked questions about this property, so I wanted to get some clarification out there for the public to understand that town is aware of it. They are working on it. Fortunately, all I can say is be patient. I'll have.
When we had our joint meeting with the Public Safety Committee, I had neglected to bring up something that I had intended to, and I didn't want to be walking on Mr. Aller's toes being their liaison. I served on the Public Safety Committee, I believe it was back in about 2013. And one of the things that the committee did that I do not believe that they do anymore is they actually divided the island into thirds and went around about once a week and noted the lights that were out on the FPL poles. And then they would write down the number of that pole and report it to Chelsea. Our staff mostly doesn't work at night, so they're not aware of when those lights are out. They can be out for days, months, weeks, etc. And it was really, I thought, an excellent service that the Public Safety Committee did. And I just wanted to see if council felt that that was something we would like to add back to. We took many things off their list. There's something that I think we could add back to their duties if they're interested in pursuing it, and if I have support for that.
Did it when I was on the public safety committee too.
Why not? No?
Good idea.
If someone's
If they're
willing
willing.
to,
And you want me to contact Dawn, or would you like to take this to them?
I can do it if you want.
I
That's
would
fine.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
As your
I'll-
liaison, I don't want to step
I
on
will
your
be more than
toes.
happy to let her know.
Thank you.
I have nothing additional, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
don't have anything else either, except to wish everyone a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. See you till afterwards, and if that's all, we'll adjourn the meeting. If there's a motion to adjourn at 11:50 a.m.
So moved.
Second.
Second, no objection. Thank you very much.